Post-Orthodoxy, a show about changing our minds.
Yeah, baby.
With your hosts, Dark and Ainsley Sevier.
Maybe what they believe about reality isn't all of reality.
What?
I know, right?
We're on a mission to have a better time with more people more often.
The question is more how do you get there?
Post-Orthodoxy explores strongly held beliefs, how those belief systems divide or connect people, and what might be found beyond those reality bubbles.
Keep calm. Don't lose your head.
I've got a piece of chocolate here with me because I got anxiety about doing this.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
Oh, heavens.
What happened?
My phone fell onto the buttons, and then suddenly there was no camera, but I fixed it.
Oh.
We're back.
Oh, boy.
We're here. We're here with you guys.
Scary times.
It's always something in the Sevier studios.
Yeah, we're working on getting an engineer.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We're going to do as long of a show as everybody feels like doing today up to a certain point.
Post-Orthodoxy Special Edition.
Careful for your glass of fluids over there, please.
Blood.
Anyway, this is the 38th episode of
Wow.
Season 2. We started Season 2 after a 9-month gestation break from when KBMF kicked us out in September 2020 to when September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Maybe it was only 6 months. April, May. I know we started before May. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Season 2 started after...
Season 2 started after we
Friends of the show helped us create a studio.
Beautiful
so we can do this thing right here.
Yep. We had a very successful fundraiser, thanks to a lot of y'all's help, and built this studio, which enables us to have guests from all over the world, which we did a lot of in Season 2. Not as much as we would like, but we kept kind of getting caught up in the most important story of the day. And it just seemed like every week it was imperative to come and talk with you guys about things that are being thrown into our face, news articles, statistics, how our friends and loved ones are doing. But we do have it in our souls to have more interviews with folks in Season 3, which won't be waiting till March.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's been a wild ride this year.
38 episodes. We did 2 episodes a week for a little while.
Too much.
It was a lot. We have a lot to catch up on.
There was so much to talk about, but we needed to do 2 shows a week. But then also... production became too much.
Chef Boyardee says we both look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. This is not the 12-hour edition, but...
Yeah, we were going to do like a whole marathon. We were just going to
This is not that day.
It might be.
It can't because I have places I have to go later today.
Oh.
Yeah, but we will do that eventually.
When do you have to, how long, if the maximum run of this show, if you just had to run out the door to your next appointment, when do you have to leave?
At 5:30.
Okay, this could be a 5-hour show.
Oh, my God.
But maybe not. Yeah, I wanted to do
Tune in and tell your friends.
Let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Ainsley Sevier, Dark Sevier, this is Post-Orthodoxy. What is Post-Orthodoxy?
It's become... definable as a show about introducing reasonable doubt.
Yeah. It was about a show about changing our minds, but we decided that was probably too much.
That's almost too much. And we don't even go there. We change our minds a lot, but we're not out to change your minds.
That's
we are definitely out to introduce reasonable doubt into our friends and loved ones' minds, because I think if you have the facility to recognize and entertain reasonable doubt, that means that you have cognitive liberty. Cognitive sovereignty.
What's that all about?
Cognition has to do with your mind, and sovereignty has to do with you owning what you're thinking about rather than somebody else managing what you're thinking about. So yeah, we're definitely a show about changing our minds. We're a show about peeking outside of our various reality bubbles and making sure that we're not thinking the way we experience reality is the only way that reality is out there. But we're also, I think, more and more we describe ourselves as a show about introducing a conversation around introducing reasonable doubt.
Reasonable doubt in what?
Which is a legal term. So you can have 2 kinds of defenses in court, to be very not very technical. So if someone takes you to court and they are claiming something, you can have two kinds of defenses from my experience watching cop shows.
Oh.
That one of them, like Sherlock Holmes, one of them is you find evidence that proves the story.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Or the other one is you find evidence that suggests the story is true. How do I say this? How do I say this better? Someone says, that guy was sleeping with my wife.
Yeah.
And you could find evidence like condom, DNA samples, friends that saw him going into the wife's house when the husband was away. Security camera footage from the bathroom or something. You know, like you can find evidence proving that guy slept with my wife.
Right.
Or you can just you can introduce a reasonable doubt to the jury, which means...
Yeah, but they have to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for you to be considered guilty.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say is like either you prove that it's true beyond reasonable doubt or the man gets off free because of reasonable doubt. So if you can introduce reasonable doubt, so here's the main story. They should be able to prove their story, this man slept with my wife, beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Maybe it was just a bunch of circumstantial evidence.
Exactly. So if you can prove that he slept with my wife beyond reasonable doubt,
DNA,
then that's the thing. But what the defense wants to do is introduce reasonable doubt to the story, which is what we do to the story all the time. Somebody says, this is the one true story. He slept with my wife. And we're like, well, but... this credit card receipt shows that he was buying ice cream for himself and his kids at that time. We don't necessarily know, but we're introducing reasonable doubt to the story that the only story is that he slept with my wife. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's where I was getting tied up. It's two things.
It's two things.
The prosecution has to prove their story
beyond
is true.
A reasonable doubt. Yeah.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. And the defense wants to come in and introduce reasonable doubt.
So that people are not so sure about the evidence.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So, and the main narrative, the main case that I've been focused on in the last almost 2 years has been what I call the coronavirus narrative.
Narrative?
That's right.
You conspiracy theorist.
There's a story about the coronavirus. There's several stories, but there's like the big story that has the oomph of a lot of money of the corporate elite, political elite, media elite. So there's a main story about the coronavirus narrative, and we have been finding other evidence that makes the official coronavirus narrative suspect.
It introduces reasonable doubt into the official prosecution story.
And why would I want to do that? Why would I want to introduce reasonable doubt in the story that people have made their Facebook profile circle?
Yeah, why?
Defined by. Why would I want to do that?
Why would you do that?
Well,
I think that's an important question to answer because otherwise people might just assume you're an asshole and a rebel for no reason. And you don't care about people's lives.
Why would I spend a majority of my week doing investigations into evidence that seems to indicate that the mainstream corporate narrative of the coronavirus is not true? Why would I do that?
Why?
Because I think it's a life and death situation. I think when we were way back when we were on the radio, we often talked about how we started out with, cat in the curve, let's not be assholes, let's not spread a virus. And then very soon afterwards, we started looking at the story. We educated ourselves on what is a virus? What is a coronavirus? How do viruses work? What is herd immunity? How do you protect your immune system? So we started educating ourselves, and then suddenly the official narrative started to feel really weak.
Right.
And then
we had moments of reasonable doubt, you know, like in the beginning, quote unquote beginning, from like March to May of 2020.
Bleach your bananas.
Yeah. If you're not like putting your cereal into a sterile container out on your porch with gloves on and then bringing it inside after a period of time in the cold, you don't really care about protecting people from this virus. And then for me, my moment of reasonable doubt was when Butte-Silverboe Schools announced that in light of the fact that many children only get food when they come to school and have a school lunch, Butte-Silverboe announced that kids could come and pick up their usual free school lunch as long as they had an adult with them. And that just went like in my brain.
Something's gone awry.
Because I know that the whole problem is a ton of these children don't have a reliable or available adult to go with them to get food.
That's a problem.
And so I was like, now, wait a second. I suddenly realized that even though I was having a perfectly fine pandemic experience, staying home with my favorite person who does not abuse me and who I enjoy spending time with, a lot of other people were not having
a good time.
A perfectly fine pandemic experience.
No, it was fear-inducing.
It was suddenly like, oh, staying home for a few weeks is actually really unhealthy for a lot of people. They don't have passive income or income that they don't have to leave the house for. They don't know how to cook. A lot of people didn't know how to, because they'd only ever gotten like food at school or food at work or food to go. You know,
we got a lot of dysfunction in our society.
Yeah, we have a lot of dysfunction in our society, and that realization about the kids that, oh, there are kids who are stuck at home with people who abuse them, and the only way we ever find out about it is because they go to school and their teacher reports something suspicious about their behavior or about bruises or something like that, and they're not having that supervision anymore. And so I started realizing how horrifying these ongoing lockdowns, and that was my introduction of reasonable doubt into questioning the mainstream story that the best thing that we can do for everyone is to just stay home.
Yeah, we had early treatments in early 2020. There were different protocols where people had tried some stuff out and said, you know what, we can do some early treatments and keep people from going to the hospital. And all that got put on hold as we waited for a vaccine. They're like, nope, we're just going to take care of it with
just
a one shot wonder. We're going to take care of it. So don't worry about early treatments. People were like, I got COVID. They're like, wait till you have to go to the hospital. And then they would come in and they give them drugs that killed their kidneys and then put them on a respirator that collapsed their lungs. And then they would die and say, oops, COVID. Yeah. Even though for almost 2 years, we have had protocols of cheap drugs that are keeping people from getting seriously ill with the disease, which means we didn't need an emergency use authorization for a unproven, untested, experimental vaccine. It is still in the experimental phase. We are still in phase 3 trials. If you are participating in those trials, you're a participant in a trial.
Yeah. A trial that you have signed away your right to prosecution for if it goes wrong.
So for me, my moment of reasonable doubt was when...
The very first one?
Maybe the first one was when they started talking about lockdowns. First, it was the mask, because that became political for some reason. A medical thing became political. I'm like, how does that become political?
You walk through the grocery store and you see someone with a mask off and you think, probably Republican.
Yeah. And I'm like, that doesn't make medical sense. So what the hell's going on in our country where the mask has become political? So we looked into it. And then we see all our health authorities saying, don't wear masks. It's a respiratory virus. Don't wear masks. That's not going to help you. And then a week later, they're all like, totally wear masks. And I'm like,
but science changes.
Doesn't change that fast.
Doesn't it, though?
Nope.
In the light of a novel virus?
That's when I started to be able to delineate between a policy decision and a scientific or medical decision. And the mask thing was not based on science or medicine.
Yeah.
It was based on political policy. So our health authorities were delivering political messages that did not have anything, and then told us to believe the science.
Trust science. Or in this case, respect...
That's schizophrenic, and that's gaslighting.
Respect Dr. Fauci as the representative of science.
I am science.
He is science. So what do Dark and I bring to the table in all of this? We're not just wackadoodles out here poking holes in things for no reason. We both grew up in groups that demonstrated cultish thinking. I would probably go so far as to say the group Dark grew up in was an actual cult.
Very much a cult.
And many people would call it a cult. Yeah. I grew up a conservative, reformed, evangelical Christian, which is not a cult. It's a denomination of a major world religion. But the behavior that I experienced in the version of Christianity that I grew up in was cult-like. And in that you weren't allowed to question. There was an ultimate authority that represented everything true. You can't trust your intuition or your knowledge about the world. You just have to do what you're told. These various practices and behaviors, as I slowly broke out of them over the last 5 years, I still know how to recognize them in other groups. And so when people started looking at their neighbors at the grocery store and identifying them as a member of the good guys or not a member of the good guys because they were wearing a mask or not, I'm like, this is cult-like behavior. that those very well-meaning people might not recognize because they'd never experienced it before. They just feel like they're joining a meaningful team. Now, we're not anti-mask. We're not anti-lockdown. We're not anti-science. We're not anti-vax. We are...
Too much energy.
No. We care about people being able to think for themselves and do what's healthiest for them. And I care about people making decisions because it's based in evidence and not because it's something that they feel very strongly about or they're afraid that if they don't do it, they'll become unloved.
We have Darren Anthony tuning in
from
Ireland. Darren Anthony, what's going on in Ireland?
Yeah, tell us how things are in Ireland and what your experience is like over there.
And you can use any aspect of your life to tell us about that. We're kind of interested in what's going on because I know different countries are handling the narrative differently. Australia is an extreme version of how they're handling the narrative. And I hear Ireland's got a hefty amount of resistance to some of the strong-handed tactics towards mandates, the drive towards mandates. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what's going on in Ireland with your coronavirus narrative.
We love having foreign correspondents on the show. Last year we had a lot of information and input from a friend of the show, Astrid Selling in Sweden. She would check in with us every week and let us know. Sweden handled things really beautifully. They made some mistakes at the beginning with how they took care of the old people, but we all already knew that the elderly, the extremely elderly, and the sick were going to be the ones most affected by a new virus. This is how it works every time a new virus hits the planet. But once they'd kind of fixed that arrangement, they were like, look, we're going to do daily debriefings on the news with scientists, not politicians, for the people to know what we're learning, what we're realizing. And so the people got to stay updated on what was changing and being discovered about this new coronavirus rather than just hearing one story in March of 2020.
A political story.
And just thinking that's the whole story forever and a day. And that, like I still have friends who are like, we just really don't know what's going on with the coronavirus. And we just need to be safe because it's just so new. We just don't know what's going on. I'm like, bro, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We like a lot of other countries actually know what's going on. Israel keeps really great data. Whatever you think.
You could know. Darren Anthony says he's not sure that we're ready for that answer. And I don't know
about
if the
Ireland?
answer about Ireland or how they found post-Orthodoxy. Because he hasn't asked either of those questions. But I think we're ready for whatever your answer is.
We're not easily offended.
Unless maybe he's working for the CIA
and he can't say anything. Maybe somebody sent it to him.
We're ready for the answer.
You got to join this show. These assholes are so dumb. Please go say stupid shit to them because they blocked me.
Them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't mind trolls. We haven't been heavily trolled.
He's using like really good grammar for a troll.
Yeah, we keep this chatbot in the middle. It was designed in order for us to have conversations.
Yeah.
We've been on the air with this style of doing a show for over a year, and we haven't really had any problems with people.
Well, we've had the chatbot since before Post-Orthodoxy was born. We had the chatbot with copacetic conversations with
we did?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been around for a long time, and because we want to have the conversation.
Yeah. And now there are times, like there was some guy that came on Twitch and was just like typing a ton of poop emojis and talking.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not gonna quote you on air. It's not really relevant to the conversation.
We're not going to say poop.
You just did though.
Oh, God, he got me.
3 weeks later. Now, it's very interesting because part of the history of post-Orthodoxy is that we were censored from discussing coronavirus data on the radio station and then gagged by the station manager from telling our audience that he'd told us we could not discuss coronavirus data anymore.
Censorship on top of censorship.
And then when we told our audience on the side on Facebook that we'd been told we couldn't talk with them about coronavirus data anymore and we were going to have to take a break, he kicked us out of the radio station and got the board of the building to ban us from the building. So it's
censorship on top of censorship on top of censorship
on top of censorship. Yeah. So now even though we live in this town and we donated to the radio station with time and money for years, Dark helped start it, because the station manager coerced and lied to the board of the building that the station is in to get us kicked out of the building.
They feel
we
unsafe.
Are no longer able to participate in the civil process of a 501c3 in our own town. That being said, there have been a couple of times that we have chosen to revoke someone's privileges
That's true.
to discuss things on our pages.
This is a salon. This is our living room. And just like any other living room, if someone starts acting like a cunt, we're going to kick you out. Sorry. It's just about protecting the space for people to have a reasonable dialogue.
We have people,
and we get to decide what's reasonable.
We have people that show up who disagree with us vehemently.
We love that.
Ongoingly.
Tell us.
And they don't use derogatory terms.
Yeah.
And they don't go and talk about us behind our backs on their private Facebook pages.
They don't make it personal. Don't make it personal.
But there have been a couple of people who have made it personal.
Very personal.
And pointless.
Yeah.
So we're absolutely here for difficult conversations, and we want to be called out. That's why we have the chat bot. And so whatever answer you think we're not ready for, come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro. Yeah, we're ready for those answers.
Yeah.
And today I thought this would be a good time just to have an open house, talk to our audience.
So we're going to be here. If you want to waft in, waft out, get some snacks.
Ask us anything.
Yeah, ask us anything.
We may or may not answer it.
We may or may not have an answer for it.
Yeah.
We might just Google it live and show you how we find our answers to things.
Because I do want to do some of that today, because I did put some stuff together for the show.
Yeah.
But I think the process of how we go about the show is something I'd like to share with our audience.
Absolutely.
So, like, where do you get your information? I'm like, well, first I go here.
Not the news.
And then I read this, and I'm like, that rings a bell.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look into that. What is the source of that thing? Who is funding that source? And how did it get to my eyeballs? How did it get... And then from that, I glean some information.
Right. And then you
which we
compare
share
it
with you guys.
to a bunch of other informations. It's a long process.
Yeah. This is why I spend 40 to 50 hours a week preparing the stuff that we talk about over the course of 2 hours here on Sunday.
Yeah. So if you do have to waft out, take a minute and send the video to a few friends.
Let's find people
like
in
a
other
recipe
countries.
chain.
Let's find people in other countries. Let's see how many different countries we can get in the thread.
Think of the person that lives the
Today.
farthest away from you and send it to them.
Hey, we got a comment.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Darren Anthony says, I am in Northern Ireland here, which has its own government as part of the UK, being the British Isles, England, Scotland. But I am basically a part of both, as the border is a few miles away. Northern Ireland has been very straightforward. There have been lockdowns, mask mandates, but because we are not part of Ireland on paper, but of course we are in our hearts, Ireland does not police us and the UK does not police us. So the enforcement of the lockdowns has been minimal, and thankfully most people I know are really clued into what's going on.
What's going on?
That's awesome. So
what's going on?
I pull some things from Darren's breakdown of his experience in Ireland. I feel like, having read what he shared, that he's feeling a little sus about the mainstream story.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it.
Now, there's a broad spectrum of people who feel sus about the mainstream story.
But what's the real story?
There might be people who think that the entire virus never existed and the whole thing is just a media hoax.
Yeah.
And then there are people that you think it does exist, but that we should let God kill us in his own time, you know? And then there are people that think it does exist, but we know how to treat it and how to prevent death and severe hospitalization.
So there's no emergency use authorization
no
required
to do an emergency use testing of a treatment.
a treatment.
Treatment. I refuse to call it a vaccine.
Yeah, the people who are producing these treatments are drug dealers and known criminal actors.
Yeah.
They're drug dealers and known criminal entities. They have been fined, the largest fine, Pfizer, criminal fine in the history of criminal fines.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what was that one that you found?
Why would you trust that?
This week, where it was like, fact check, Moderna did not submit the patent for the drug.
Oh, no, it's not Moderna. It was that's taking us down the Rothschild.
Oh, okay, we'll save that. We'll save that. We got time. We've been here about a half hour. We have, let's see how many people are tuning in right now. We have 10 people tuning in right now on various platforms.
Oh, nice.
If you don't like things
as
on
far
Facebook,
as we know, there's a lot of people who are telling me this week that they watch us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Facebook, but they don't click on it. So they just make the volume come on because they don't want to be tracked. That's what they said.
So they scroll past it and they see that it's there.
They see it's there, and then they just turn the volume on.
Right, but they're not clicking to the link.
Rather than tuning in, because then that way they're not associated. You know, they're not tied into the.
I hate that's the way it is, but I get it.
So that's what I heard from one listener, but I've heard a lot of people who say they just scroll through and then turn on the volume rather than clicking in and participating. And we like everybody. We really appreciate. I know we have a lot of what do you call those, lurkers?
Lurkers,
We
and
got a
people
lot
that
of
watch
lurkers.
later too.
and people who watch it after the fact. And we appreciate everybody. We've been receiving more and more information offline, where friends of the show are anonymously telling us how much they appreciate what we're doing and encourage us to continue to do the work we're doing on Post-Orthodoxy, and we really appreciate all that. Whether you are upfront with your support or through private messenger, all of it goes a long way for us to feel encouraged to keep doing what we're doing. Speaking of, you can go to postorthodoxy.com, and there's a support button if you want to support us in another way. You can financially sustain us through a $5 a month subscription. We have a little thing where it's really easy just to fill that out and figure out how it goes.
We have a friend of the show that shared a link with me this morning.
Okay.
And I'm going to share it anonymously because I understand the perspectives that this friend of the show is coming from, and he does not like to be associated with a lot of the things that he shares.
Okay, so let's say it.
So rens-law.com, lawyers, paralegals, and volunteers, has a big American flag on the top. Make Americans Free Again, our valued partners. So he sent me the link of having signed this thing. So thank you for...
Wait, our subscription?
No.
Okay.
My friend sent me a link to something, a petition. To a petition, but the page that it pops up is, thanks for signing this. So Anyway, Thank you for signing the Renz letter and joining us in the fight against tyranny. What's next? We'll submit your electronically signed letter to government representative. And then it says, see Tom Renz COVID vaccine presentation at Clay Clark's Reawakening Tour, Dallas, Texas. I will go back to the homepage for rens-law.com. Serving justice with integrity. So I think this is yet another group of legal professionals who are evaluating the evidence of what has happened in human society over the last couple of years.
In the pandemic narrative.
Yeah. And are saying, okay, the ends does not justify the means.
Yeah.
The ends is not justifying the means.
We're causing more harm than good.
We are causing more harm than good right now.
More harm than the thing we're trying to supposedly protect people from. Yeah. That's clear.
Mrs. Yardy says, I'm a watch after the show kind of person, but it's much more fun to be here live.
Yeah, thanks for saying hey.
Thanks for popping in. And Mark French on YouTube says, can't wait to jump down the Rothschild rabbit hole. I never grow bored of those.
Oh, boy. Well, good. Participate in the dialogue because I don't know if I really want to do it.
I'm nervous because Dark's like, look at all of this shit. And I'm like, how much of that can we Google?
Let me address the Rothschild thing from my personal perspective.
Very good.
What does that mean? So I am 52 years old, almost 53 years old. I was deep into conspiracy research in my 20s, which
back when you had to go to the library.
Pre-internet. You had to go to the library, you had to go to the bookstore and find the obscure tomes, and then you had to have that weird guy that his house smelled kind of funny and get a VHS from him that was being shared around. That was how we did our research in the early 90s. Once you get into the conspiracy stuff, pretty quick, everything dovetails modern conspiracy. Not if you're going back to the Knights Templar or you're going back to secret societies way back when. But if you're talking about relatively last couple hundred years, all conspiracy theories, they dovetail into the Rothschild family.
It always comes up.
Yeah, it all goes back to the Rothschilds. Everything else is just some sort of aspect of the grand conspiracy perpetrated by the Rothschilds. So
look, I kind of had a bit of an epiphany when we were talking about this show and talking about, the seemingly ongoing rolling evidence that there are people out there that are masterminding shit and it's not for our good. And being a person that has lived in multiple reality bubbles, the voice of my friends, the skeptics, always pops into my head to kind of be a check and balance. I'm constantly having voices pop into my head to be like, yeah, but what? So you think there's some great evil overlord?
That's a good journalistic impulse.
Oh yeah. And so what I said to my internal skeptic friend was, look, everybody thinks about masterminding the world for their betterment. I would love to arrange the world around me for my betterment. I think about that. I think about having a better job with more money. I think about finally being able to buy my house so I don't have to worry about it anymore. I think about, having all the money I want to be able to travel to see my loved ones whenever I want to see them. We all think about arranging the world for our betterment. What we often do not imagine or are incapable of imagining or have not practiced imagining is being capable of arranging the world for our betterment. We all think about masterminding shit for our betterment. We very rarely think about being capable, what it would feel like to just
take the responsibility of all of everything into your hands. Oh,
no.
Okay.
Sorry. No, we don't. Like, I think I would love to have money to go visit my siblings anytime I wanted to.
Sure.
I don't.
Right.
So it's just this thing over here where I imagine being able to do that.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the ability to do that, nor do I ever really think of, but there are people out there who absolutely have the ability to move and shake whole systems on the planet.
Yeah.
And so when a nice person is imagining how it would be nice if the world revolved around them a little bit more.
Yeah.
They're not the same person as the person who is able to make the world revolve around them and doesn't care.
Mm.
And because you're nice,
you can't imagine that.
You can't imagine being the kind of sociopath that would divert whole food systems so that you keep your profit margins high in the middle of a pandemic. Because you wouldn't do that. You have a hard time imagining that somebody else would. But there are humans living on the planet who do. This is why we talk about sociopaths and psychopaths. And there are sociopaths and psychopaths who have the power to arrange entire systems for their benefit, usually a profit margin, and don't worry about you the way that you worry about your neighbors.
And people who worry about their neighbors often can't imagine that anybody would be so sociopathic. I don't have a hard time imagining that because I've worked with some of them. Our society tends to glorify sociopaths.
Yeah.
The higher you go up into the building with the better view, the more sociopathic is likely going to be the people running that office. That's a study done with donuts and coffee.
Yeah. It's like we can all think about it, whatever structure you're in, whether that's your friends at school or your coworkers at work, or your friends at church, or the person that's running the homeowners association in your neighborhood. The further someone gets up in the food chain, whatever the food chain is, the more likely it is that they don't care about everybody.
You want me to do the brief story of the coffee and donuts?
Yeah, but let me read Darren Anthony's thing real
before
quick.
It goes too far.
He says, guys, how I found the podcast was what I meant to say you may not be ready for.
Aha.
It's nothing related to the topics being discussed at hand, and at least in my opinion, oh my God, Dark, here we go.
Okay.
In my opinion, it's a lighthearted way to find you guys. I always missed the 90s. As to me, before mobile phones and computers, etc., it was a more peaceful time, and I relax sometimes by watching the old shows.
Oh boy.
I watched Saved by the Bell, and the episode you played the volleyball player, Dark, and then I checked the cast, clicked on your name, and here I am.
Thanks for tuning in.
That's a totally organic find. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for tuning in. I've resisted ever mentioning that show or my participation on it on our podcast for a long time, but I've often talked about we should just have the Saved by the Bell episode.
We should, because you have a lot of people that...
It's a weird story.
It's a weird story, and it's a story apropos of the times, the 90s, in the entertainment industry in LA. Everything was changing, including yourself. So,
oh boy.
That's awesome. Thank you, Darren. Either way, I'm here, and I enjoy watching, and it is him. He just doesn't have any hair anymore.
Yeah, that's me. We forgot to turn the heat on downstairs. She's braver than I am. I needed an extra layer for the show today.
It is your Grim Reaper costume from Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm a judge.
Mark French says there are right around 2,450 billionaires on the planet. I'm just under 700 of them residing or basing their operations in the United States. Tracing and accounting and following it isn't conspiratorial. Thank you, Mark.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. We can know these things. A lot of these documents are supposed to be public. It's just math, he says. When it lines up into public policy that goes astray is when these things should be discussed. I had like this really unhappy moment this week when I realized that senators are allowed to get to do stocks.
I got to find that kid's software. Maybe you can help me
Yeah.
find it.
You
'cause
tell
you're
the donuts
a
and
faster
coffee
typer.
thing and I'll look. But yeah, Dark was like, well, blah, 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 Nancy Pelosi in the stock market. And I was like, our representatives shouldn't be allowed to do the stock market.
They shouldn't be able to make trades that are affected by the votes that they put out.
No. Like, I was like, wait
probably
a
shouldn't be
second.
able to do that, but.
What?
So there's this kid who created an app that tracks when members of Congress or the Senate make stock trades so you can get in on their corruption. So like anytime Nancy Pelosi's like, let's do something that has something to do with communications, and I'm going to move this around, and then you just do what she did because they're going to vote on it next week, and she's going to become a hundred millionaire while being a public servant.
All right, here's one article from Cizion, PR Newswire.
Yeah.
Let's see. Distribution.
What's this about?
It doesn't say.
The kid.
2IQ launches Capital Trades, a platform that tracks U.S. politicians' trades. Frankfurt, Germany. 2IQ Research has launched the online service capitaltrades.com, where investors can track stock market trades of Capitol Hill politicians in a convenient way. The Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act of 2012 requires members of the U.S. Congress to disclose their stock market trades. You think?
Oh, yeah.
And since 2IQ has already built the largest and most sophisticated insider trading database globally, adding Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge trade data to their offering was a logical step. There's also an NPR article. TikTokers are trading stocks by copying what members of Congress do. Whale alert, Nancy Pelosi just bought $11 million in these 4 stocks.
Right. So that happens.
That's awesome. I'll share those articles with you guys.
So I'll tell you real quick the story about the coffee and the donuts and the sociopaths that run the planet. This is a story, I think if you Googled it, you could probably find this story somewhere. And I might be telling a mythologized version of the story, but I think the principles are the same. So there was a sociological experiment in a high-rise building somewhere in Manhattan. And the experiment went like this. By the elevator, they set up a table with free coffee and free donuts and a note that said, hey, we'd like to try to do this service. Here's a tip jar. It's like an anonymous tip jar. They just have to put it in, right?
Yeah.
So here's a tip jar, and if everybody pitches in, we can keep this service going.
Keep doing coffee and donuts.
You can just get off that elevator, get your coffee and donuts. Just
drop a dollar in.
Let's take care of this, right? So on the lower floors of the building, there was far more money in the kitty required to keep that service going.
In the lower floors of the building, which you're saying, now this is an old world
street
thing,
level,
is synonymous with poorer, less important members of the company work on the lower floors of the building.
On the lower floors of the building, that's the cheaper real estate. That's where you have more your low level workers.
Okay.
And you go up where you have the penthouses and you have the larger views of the
corner
city.
Offices.
The corner off. These status things. The floor you're on is a status thing. The size. So they did it and on every floor all the way up the building.
Yeah.
And they found the further you went up, by the time they got to the higher floors, there was no money in the kitty.
Why do you keep saying kitty?
That's what they call it. That's a little thing to put some money in.
Okay.
Anyway, there was no money in the tip jar. Tipping is not a city in China.
Darren is here for the 90s nostalgia, but I need definitions sometimes.
Yeah. So the higher up they went, they took the coffee, they took the donuts that were provided for free, and they did not compensate at all.
Yes, and you noticed a similar pattern when you were driving limousines for famous people in LA.
The bigger the house, the bigger the name, the less the tip. The people who I was picking up at 4 o'clock in the morning who just opened up a WB store in Taiwan and came back, they knew that I'm some guy having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to pick his ass up, and I would take him to some shitty apartment in Hollywood and they give me a $20 tip.
Which in the 90s was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then the people that had the 6-car garage and the names that everybody knows, nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. I was just fortunate to be in their presence.
You were lucky to be the one that drove them.
Yeah, exactly. I get a story out of that, right?
Now is that, I feel as though part of that has to do with I feel is the little Republican capitalist inside of me from my childhood. The little Republican capitalist inside of me.
Your inner child is a
my
Republican capitalist.
Is a Republican Christian capitalist.
Okay.
And she's saying, well, that makes sense because if they just gave their money away all the time, they wouldn't be millionaires.
That's a story.
That is what the little capitalist in my head says.
Right.
It's like,
I think it demonstrates people who have more social and desire more social, act more socially.
Yeah. And don't tend to get the corner office.
Yeah.
Because you have to step over people to get there.
So we elevate
Dark,
people.
don't you need someone to run the company, though?
So that's the idea. People who, I had the idea a long time ago that we should not be running for office. We should be selected and not elected. I think the idea is that we're supposed to have some candidate that the public wants and move them into a position of power so they can represent us, right?
Yeah.
But you saw with the Bernie Sanders thing, and it happens. I saw it happen in this state. The party has a candidate that they're going to present to the voters and give you options from the candidates that are being presented to the voters, and then they think they're electing a representative.
Right.
That's not the way it's going. Right. So I like the idea of selecting somebody for office, which is we do what we're supposed to do and have everybody say, you know, that guy over there that doesn't want to run for office, but he has impeccable ethics and a trustworthy record and some visionary ideas that we have a record of. This is somebody who actually gives a shit about being a human on the planet and having a society. Let's fucking recruit that guy to run and have some public push to actually have representative government by having the people who are voting actually select who they want to run instead of taking the selection by the corporate overlords.
Yeah.
I think that would be useful.
That would be awesome.
I don't know how to create that movement.
Well, like we've talked about a lot in the late stage of season 2, I think a lot of it starts locally. It starts with me and you and Butte and our representatives and how this government is run and how our citizens feel they can involve themselves in the political process.
Yeah.
It starts locally. That's what Represent Us is all about.
Right.
Is, at least in the U.S., the way the political stuff works is, for instance, with women being allowed to vote or gay people being allowed to get married, states and counties start ratifying it, and then eventually the federal government has to be like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to get to a majority.
We don't need to think about turning the entire ship of the federal government, but we can all collectively work on turning the smaller ships of our individual state and county battalions.
Yeah, like that.
How's that analogy?
We could be doing that. So I think rather than sighing over the lesser of two evils that you have to choose every year, think about who you actually want. Like, let's go like creative thinking style. Who in your community would you like to represent you in a position of governance?
Right.
Who would you like to actually govern your shit?
Yeah. Who do you know that you think would do a good job taking care of you and your neighbors?
It might be like a night manager.
Yeah.
At a fast food restaurant.
And they might not want to, which is why we have term limits.
Right.
It's why you're not supposed to be able to just do the same political thing until you die, because it should be someone who kind of really doesn't want to do it forever. Because if you want to do it forever, you probably shouldn't be allowed to.
Yeah, I'm going to make the pitch. I'm going to make the pitch for this idea right now and why the timing's really good. So what we saw in the last 2 years politically is almost everybody in politics is a cunt. That's kind of what I saw. And the complete disintegration of what is known as leftism in America has been stunning and bewildering. How fast the left became the fan of the CIA, the FBI, big pharma, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Like how suddenly they're like, fascism is fine.
It's not fascism. No, we specifically had a frenemy of the show let us know that he studies and teaches about totalitarian states. And while you might think that what's going on in the U.S. right now is leading to a totalitarian state, it is not, because he studies it and teaches it. And I'm like, okay, but there are other countries on this planet. And although you are having a nice middle-class white male experience of the pandemic in the U.S., lots of other people on the planet are not.
Having very different experiences.
Very different experiences.
So the fun part about this story is as the story goes on, people develop track records of how they reacted to the story. Our track record was like, hey, this stinks. They're like, fuck you, get off the air.
And we kept saying it.
I think that's a good track record. And what were we saying? The stuff that is happening.
Yeah.
We were saying the lockdowns were going to cause more death and destruction and harm than the virus was supposed to be locking down from.
Yeah.
That is the case now. Finding people who have been saying the right thing and predicting the right thing, if you're a political person, you had to go along with party lines.
Yeah.
And so I think this next election is coming up, 2022. We're going to need to elect some people, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy to go back at those really critical junctures of the pandemic and say, was this guy buying the narrative without doing the research and then saying he wanted to represent me? Like, if you want to represent me, don't go down party lines. Figure out what the fuck is going on before you start putting masks on kids for an entire fucking semester.
I think that was one of the craziest things early on in 2020 was the massive push to undermine people's confidence in their own intellects.
Oh, you can't know it. You can't really know,
There was a
man.
vast campaign to undermine citizens' beliefs in themselves. In like,
be able
in like
to
a
know.
loving
Yeah.
way. Like, don't you trust authorities? Like, don't you respect people that went to college for a long time? Like, you know, like, don't you respect people who are sacrificing themselves and not sleeping at night like you do? They sleep in the daytime because they're a night nurse. Like, don't you care that they're sacrificing? Like, they know better than you do.
Scientists say.
So you must not do your own research.
No, you're not qualified.
The only way that you can, this is such an old world way of thinking. Like, we have the internet now, and the internet is full of lies and manipulation. Absolutely. But so is every other field. The only way that you can know things is if you ask your pastor or a parent or a politician.
Your party or your church.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
That used to be the only way, you know, like you would have to ask an authority figure or go to the library, I guess, if you had a library and you knew how to read. But now you can go and teach yourself things. If you wonder about something, you can go and read 5 or 6 different sources about it and then figure out which answer seems to be the best answer. Then you can be facile that when somebody comes along and says, oh, I understand that you worked really hard to get to that answer, but here's some new data that says that answer is kind of bunk. You can be like, yes, I shall be zen and move with the flow of the data. You can have that skill. You don't need to be in college to be doing that.
Can you go to the show document and scroll all the way to the bottom? This is one of the images that I used to announce the herald the coming opening of the show today.
Yeah, will you read Mark French's comment, please?
Yeah, where is it? Let me get there. Mark French. Hey, Laura Repla tuned in.
And
Darren
she posted
Anthony.
a bunch of stakes.
Mark French said, just math. When it lines up into public policy,
Nope,
that
that's
goes...
an old one.
Oh.
It's the very bottom.
Oh, very bottom. In Athenian democracy, citizens over 20, it was a civic duty to be selected for office by municipal assembly. I like it if we got some younger kids out there that actually were more responsive to their community and environment than people who've become entrenched in these old fucking,
and what's going on right now?
Calcified structures.
Like people just, I'm so done with the ageism and the dissing of the youth. Like, are you talking to the next generations that are going to be running things? Or are you just shitting on them? Like, we need people of all ages because our society is made up of people of all ages.
Right.
Oh.
What?
Where's my...
show document?
Oh, my... God damn it. Hang on there, folks.
Okay, so I have this document.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few things I want to... We can go down the Rothschild thing if there's enough community support.
For the idea of the Rothschild
let's
thing?
talk about... So we've been talking about the pandemic narrative since the beginning of... Before there was a narrative. The only thing we heard was like, meh, virus. And then we're like, okay, now we have to figure all this out, right? And we went down that road to a point where it just became us... demonstrating for you our process of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with this story because there's so many crazy twists and turns. Mm-hmm. That's been a year and a half of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. In that process, I feel like this week I hit full. I'm like, the whole reasonable doubt. Like, there's part intuition, there's part information, there's like, I don't know the full, there's like availability bias, just the sheer weight of the propaganda convincing people of a certain narrative is so hard. Like, maybe I'm crazy, am I the only one? Mm-hmm. Going through that, I feel like I got full up, and I think I've figured it out. I figured out the narrative. I'm kind of done.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that. You were like,
kind of over it now.
Let's move on.
Yeah, it's like whatever happened in the real estate crisis, whatever happened around September 11th, the forces that have been behind these high points of cultural alarm are always accomplishing the same things. And the pandemic is just another high spike where wealth is being transferred and power is being transferred. Mm-hmm. And corporate governance is replacing democratic representative governance. And coronavirus is just that story. So if you just peel back coronavirus, like, well, these are the fuckers who have been fucking us forever. And
it's the same people.
And then we're all like,
but
oh,
for some reason,
we better.
A bunch of people trust them.
Yeah, it's the abusive boyfriend story. Like,
right.
People cannot believe that there might be something better than the broken thing they have.
Well,
so they stick with the broken thing they have because they know all about it.
This is a cycle that we know. We know this cycle psychologically and relationally. It's known. It's almost impossible to imagine a better thing.
Right.
You have to go towards it before you know what it's going to feel like. You have to go towards a better job before you know that it's going to be actually better. You have to you have to get out of the unhealthy relationship before you have proof that you will definitely be in a healthy, loving relationship in the future.
So you can't let go of the old dock to find the new dock of where your reality is or what you're basing shit in. Right.
Sometimes,
you don't get to the other thing without untying from the bullshit. And our media ecology has proven itself to be completely toxic and broken. We cannot trust mainstream media. And we know that, and yet we just keep listening to it because of the availability of it. And that's a problem because we have other options. There's other things that you could be following, other sources of information. Glenn Greenwald, I think, does a really great journalistic breakdown. He somehow has not been killed. I don't know how he hasn't been killed. Matt Taibbi is another one of these guys that has really cogent breakdowns because we're more complex than we were in the 80s or the 70s or the 50s or the 40s. We are operating with computers that were from sci-fi movies that the people who are in power now most of them can't even imagine the power that is being utilized. And they're still like in fucking abacus world.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of our well-meaning loved ones don't think that it's absurd to suggest that there are structures running the planet that they don't know about.
Rothschild's coming up later in the show.
All right. So Darren from Ireland said, these have to be bots, right?
What have to be bots?
The KFC bots. It has to be bots putting the same thing.
No, because it happens on my Facebook page with my friends.
Yeah. I mean, this has happened.
I think there are some bots doing it, but this has happened
several times throughout the pandemic where if you care, you reshare the thing. Like the cattening the curve meme.
Right,
I reshared the cattening the curve meme because it was really impactful and effective. And we did it, and then we should have stopped locking down.
Right. So this is like there are bots. Some of these are probably bots. But a lot of them, my friends on Facebook are posting this thing. They're cutting and pasting as their perspective. Because it's vaxism. It's the religious mantra. You have to vocally say you're in favor of the thing or your loyalty is suspect. You can't just be neutral on the thing, right? This is why the division is so heavy right now.
Some of these I think are bots, but not all of them are.
No, like I said, I know people posting it on their pages. It just becomes like, I can't think for myself, so I'll just cut and paste this and tell you how I.
And that will let you know that I care.
It's my subscription to the story.
Yep, it'll let you know that I care.
I am all in on this story. And that's freaky to me because I'm on Twitter. I'm looking at all these different Twitter feeds, and it's original thinkers saying original things. It's not like Facebook, which is often just resharing other sources. I'm finding really good sources on Twitter of people who are breaking down the situation because we're more complex than we used to be. We need to look at this pandemic narrative from a medical perspective, from a psychological perspective, even more importantly, from an economic perspective, which is the big story that nobody's talking about, the transfer of wealth, the reason that they got rid of Bernie Sanders because he wanted to talk about income inequality. The Democratic Party said, fuck you, voters, fuck you. We've already selected your candidate, and you're gonna get it, and you're gonna like it. And then the largest transfer in wealth, like transfer of wealth unimagined by most people, has occurred under this like layer of the coronavirus, where we're all just concerned about our fucking grandmas because we're not sociopaths. We're not thinking about what we're losing right now because we're concerned for our fucking grandmas. This is the game that's been played with the coronavirus narrative. That's why I'm a little over it now.
So what does that mean, practically speaking, for you?
I've been trying to piece it together. It's almost like it's like a puzzle. You know, I've been doing conspiracy stuff since my 20s, like I said.
Right.
Which old school.
Many people do not think of as a good thing to put on your resume.
Trying to understand how things work beyond the level of propaganda, I think, is what I'm actually doing. And conspiracy theories are basically... Conspiracies are people getting together to lay out the plan that a lot of people are not aware of.
And is not necessarily for the common good.
That is modern society.
Yeah.
We're managed through public relations. Yes,
we know this.
So
we know it happens.
For me, it's like once you tie everything back to the Rothschilds, that's like putting the corner piece in. That's like you got the frame together. And then everything within that frame, you can just predict, the image now.
Right.
So this is about the transfer of wealth. This is about control. And it's funny to me a little bit because it's so out in the open, and it's tragic to me a lot because people cannot imagine the level of fuckery that's being done right in front of their eyeballs.
Right.
They can't imagine that could happen. They can't imagine...
Standing in line?
Yeah.
Insanity. That's what you need to be concerned of. Not the evil government. That's not concerning me. It's the stupidity of people is what's concerning me. The fact that the government is evil, I know that. The fact that we are controlled by evil psychopaths, we know that. What has changed? Nothing changed.
Rabbi Alon, Alone?
That's racist.
Alon. No, my tongue just fell over. It was Alon Anava.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know this.
What has changed?
So for me, it's like we
know conspiracies happen.
I've been doing Scooby-Doo shit, trying to figure out, who Mr. Carruthers, what mask he's under, to foil the plan about his oil business. It's just, I just been doing Scooby-Doo shit for a year and a half. And finally, it's like, we know the guy, it's the same old guy, and he would have gotten it too if it wasn't for the meddling kids.
Who would have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
Would have gotten away with it too. We know this.
It's still happening, and people are still being spooked by the Rothschilds in the the Bigfoot mask that's running around the site of the new mega corporation they want to build or whatever.
Mark French says fear equals compliance. So many examples of power brokers creating a problem and pretending to solve it while hoarding money and consolidating power. The economic bailout for rich people was clearly already written pre-coronavirus. The Fed was already dumping billions of dollars into the overnight funds rates just to keep bank liquidity moving. Pre-public acknowledgement of the virus.
Some people might imagine that the virus was actually, the narrative of the virus was actually created in order to transfer the wealth. That maybe the story of the virus, I don't know if anybody's read the SPARS pandemic.
SPARS pandemic.
Here,
John Hopkins. I'll find it.
You find that bitch and you post it in all those things and click on this thing and read it. It is the script for what you're in.
And
every
it's not
major
the only
thing.
one.
Yeah.
There was, Event 120 or something? The Bill Gates event thing?
Event 201.
Event 201. So there's been like 4 over the last decade of people planning to do this.
It's so in the open, people can't imagine what it's like. The World Economic Forum.
Well, they wouldn't put it out there.
We're going to redesign society without actual governance. And you're going to like it. I'm like, they have a website saying this. It's not like I didn't have to go to the guy with the smelly couch and get the videotape to figure that one out. They put a fucking website out.
Put it out there, and because they put it out there and made a movie about it, you think it's not real.
Or I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure they mean well because I mean well.
They had that really nice music behind it. It makes me want to do yoga. I'm sure their plan for the world is awesome. If you're not familiar with the World Economic Forum, go to their website.
It's real also.
Look up the 200-layer COVID map where they're redesigning the world through the lens of COVID. It's pretty. It's a beautiful piece of work, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pull it up.
So the World Economic Forum, awesome. They're doing stuff where they're talking the language of a fourth level Star Trek civilization.
But
where we
you're not running it.
But the oligarchs are still running
it.
Everything except we're just going to stay in charge. How's that?
Yeah.
So they're dressing up the future, and the pandemic is that's the Stockholm moment where everybody's so fucked up that they then embrace their captors.
So, just like way zoom out, you know.
Yeah, way zoom out.
Occam's razor, yo. We just watched a really cool movie, Contact with Jodie Foster from 1997 or something. It was definitely a 90s movie, but it was really beautiful, and it presented an interesting problem from the perspective that Hollywood does not usually address that problem, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil it. But she's constantly bringing up Occam's razor. She's looking for intelligent life in space, and they are like, "This is stupid." You need to, over and over again. And she finally finds a radio signal, which is not a spoiler alert, but
she made contact.
She made contact.
Yeah.
LOL. And they're like, well, but maybe it's actually satellites all over the world putting together a conspiracy to rebound a radio signal out into space that then you catch in order to make this one, like all this stuff. And she's like, look, Occam's razor, all things being considered, whatever the simplest answer is usually the answer. We know that we have an international chain of scientific institutes doing sketchy shit with massive amounts of funding from government and military institutions.
We know this. You could know this too.
Yeah.
Don't take it from us.
No, it's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, don't take it from us.
There are global science institutions studying sketchy shit, and we would love to believe that they're studying sketchy shit for the good of mankind. But what if they're not? What if some of the scientists...
Thought experiment.
What if some of the scientists at the global military and government-funded science institutions are studying sketchy shit not necessarily for the good of mankind?
It might be the benefit for a smaller group of folks.
It might be that some of the billionaires who we know and who we know are running things, potentially using a lot of their money to ask the global science institutions to pay them. They don't have to ask, they just pay them to pay the global science institutions to study sketchy shit that would potentially make the wealthy people wealthier.
Yeah, so
that's not a crazy thing. That's been done in human society many times. Releasing plagues, manipulating social groups, spreading fake news to make people fight each other. This has been done over and over again since Egyptians.
It's really bad. It's
the Egyptians did that shit.
This is what I'm saying when I'm full up. It's like so paint by number now.
Yeah.
Like trying to figure out the depth of the story and how are they pulling this shit off.
It's really easy for them now.
Yeah. So then finally I'm just like, oh God, I see all the paint by numbers, and you start to see the way it's going out. Okay. I'd like to do a little thought experiment here. Can we do a little piece that I prepared? Let's see what I got on the page. There's a NPR story. The coronavirus crisis. Don't let Omicron crash your holiday gathering. Here's how to keep your family safe. This is NPR. And I thought this is something I just want to walk through with the audience because I haven't even looked at it yet.
Yeah. Is this in your
So this
notes?
is right. So there's Fox is a bunch of liars and MSNBC are a bunch of liars, but NPR, NPR,
they're not liars.
They're public radio, sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson & Johnson Foundation, right? They're fucking sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. They might have a conflict of interest. So we have the don't let Omicron crash your holiday gathering here. So I'm like, okay, it's NPR. They have the click and clack car guys.
I have a lot of friends that are going to look at this.
Oh, no. Yeah, you should look at it. So let's see what they're saying. Let's see what our friends are getting their information. This is Montana Public Radio, NPR. Don't let Omicron crash your holiday gathering. Okay, they're going to tell us how to keep your family safe. That's kind of an important thing, don't you think? Keeping your family safe.
Those are words that make me care.
Right. You have to keep if you want to keep your family safe, just listen to NPR.
This 3-minute listen.
Yeah. I'm just going to read it. Just in time for the holidays, federal officials announced that Omicron is spreading quickly in the U.S.
Okay.
It could be the dominant variant.
You can't read it like crazy.
I want to, though.
Do you want me to read it? Let me read it how our friends are hearing it.
Okay, read it, and then I want to pick out the words.
Yes.
I'm going to stop you a lot. Go.
Yeah, but you can't read it like a nefarious overlord.
God, but that's the way it is.
No, because our well-meaning loved ones on the left are reading this from the perspective of someone that cares about keeping their families safe.
Okay, let's read a couple of sentences, and then I'll give you my notes. How's that?
Omicron could be the dominant variant in many regions by early January, according to the CDC, and it may already be a big presence in many places. For instance, it's already causing more than 13% of cases in the New York and New Jersey area, the CDC estimated on Wednesday, and Houston Methodist Hospital in Texas, which does its own genomic sequencing, said Friday that 45% of its cases are now caused by Omicron. Scientists are still trying to learn more about Omicron's severity, but they are already certain of two things. It's extremely transmissible, and it's causing many more breakthrough infections than the Delta variant. The vaccine's ability to stop infections after 2 doses has dropped to about 30% against Omicron, scientists in South Africa have found. And in the UK, health officials say the risk of a household member spreading the virus to another member is 3 times higher than it was with the Delta variant. Health officials are urging Americans to step up COVID safety measures now.
Okay, let's go that far right now. Well, so I'm already convinced that this is a great article, and I'm ready to take, because you said it in the NPR voice.
I care about keeping your family safe.
Yeah. Well, let's go through a few things in here. This whole premise that they keep saying we don't know how bad we don't know the severity yet. What we do know is that only one person has died, and it's destroying all the other variants, right? We're only hearing if it comes in and replaces the other variants, then we have something that doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
That spreads really quickly. That sounds like a solution to the problem.
So it's spreading quickly. It's shoving the more dangerous variants out of the way because it's the new kid on the block, and it doesn't kill you. That sounds great.
Unfortunately,
that's what colds do.
People who already have natural immunity seem to be immune to the Omicron variant. People are now calling it the pandemic of the vaccinated because of the narrow focus of the vaccine is not keeping up with the variants, so its ineffective is even less effective than its spectacularly failure to be effective.
Can you say that sentence one more time?
No.
Try it again, Sam.
What am I trying to say?
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
So apparently they're calling it a pandemic of the vaccinated because most of the people getting sick now with this variant are the vaccinated. Very, very few people unvaccinated are getting this particular. So it feels like the narrow focus of the vaccine.
As in the vaccine is tailored to protect you from a certain version of coronavirus.
The first one, right? And it's already gone iterations off. So you have virtually no immunity to this one. Where people who have natural immunity have a broader immunity and seem to be immune to this one. And luckily, it's not that dangerous. They said it could go either way. They should, vaccinating during a pandemic could create a more dangerous version. This just did what coronaviruses normally do and made a more virulent version.
A friend of the show that I've been conversing with a lot this week, we've been getting more and more concerned about our loved ones who have chosen to take some of these treatments as we see a massive spike in cardiovascular system related deaths and hospitalizations, aneurysms, myo and pericarditis, blood clotting, heart attacks, cardiac arrest, etc. So I've been conversing with a friend of the show, and I'm not going to say his name because he's only ever messaged me privately. But he's been sharing protocols that he's been finding where for people to support their cardiovascular system post mRNA shot. Initially, he was kind of like, isn't taking an mRNA shot like crossing the Rubicon? Like your system's just going to do what it's going to do with the spike proteins, and you can't stop it.
Right.
And you might be one of the athletes that drops dead on the soccer field, or you might be perfectly fine. Or you might have some chest pains and your doctor tells you to go home because it's anxiety. But he started scoping for heart support, herbs that can prevent blood clotting, things like that, stuff that the internet is looking for.
Right.
But one of the things in between all of that relates to what you're talking about, he said the Russians are saying Omicron was engineered to end the pandemic. The weaker strain, mixed with the common cold coronaviruses and rhinoviruses, would spread fast, not making people really sick, and bring about herd immunity. After all, everybody gullible enough to have taken the pin has done so already, and people are starting to speak up about different things regarding the safety, etc., of the quote-unquote vaccines. The vaccination has been the important thing all along. I first started thinking this was bogus when they had a death ticker on the corner of the screen on CNN. The fact that it was nearly impossible to get a test to travel last year, and the fact that the cards are so rinky-dinky, the passport cards.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most ultimately copyable identification card in the history of mankind. No numbers on the vaccination cards, and they're filled in with an ink pen as though they were disposable. It all seems not very organized, like another elaborate skit from the producers of 9/11. Because people will believe anything and repeat what they hear, Anderson Cooper says it like the gospel. Make no mistake. They thought about which demographic would believe it, basically everyone who thinks that they're the intelligent ones according to what they read. So many interesting things in that, but it has to do with what you're talking about what coronaviruses do over time. We know this. We've known this. Dark and I
we don't have to go down a conspiracy thing. They engineered
conspiracy.
This one. Well, maybe it is. I don't know.
It's not a conspiracy what coronaviruses naturally do.
Right.
That is a known scientific process for a long time.
Omicron seems to be doing what we would expect a coronavirus to do.
Which is mutate more and more over time, become weaker and weaker, and then eventually just be a normal part of society.
It's
like
just a parasite on the human experience.
Flu.
Yeah, it's a passport. It has a way to exist with humans because it doesn't want to burn itself out.
Yeah, it doesn't want to eat you all up. It wants to stay around.
It wants to hang out with the humans for a while, so you can't get rid of the humans, so it can't be that deadly. So it eventually just works out a little herd cull.
Yeah. Which is crass, but it's scientific. We have to look at the planet as a whole. You know, we have to look at the planet as a whole.
But it was such a bad virus because we figured out shit really early on where you could pretty much not go to the hospital.
I think this is one of the things that's making us feel really kind of done with the whole thing is that it's extremely provable and has been proved in a variety of countries with a variety of treatments that there are things that could have been done to save lives
that were not done.
And that you were made to laugh at.
And so I'm still sort of up on the air. I think it's a big mixture of complete incompetence because of the way that we elevate people in our systems of power in this country. You don't need an ethical person to be in that. You don't need to be an ethical person to be in a position of power.
No.
We used to have ethical standards, but we don't have them anymore. We just move on to the next ethical breach to outrage people. And we never have accountability for people who break the rules or even like have the appearance. Like there's so much appearance of impropriety that seems like 99%. That alone should be making people question things.
Yeah.
That reasonable doubt should make people question things. But we're just inundated with ethical violation after ethical violation so that we don't even hear that word anymore. We don't talk about it. But to me, that's what I've come to. We're in an ethical crisis. There's no accountability for fucking up or doing things wrong or doing things deceptive or doing things that are harmful. There seems to be very little repercussions. So why do we think it's ever going to stop? Unless we start holding people accountable.
Yeah.
We have to start saying, why did we let the Fauci thing go? Why did we not, like the funding with EcoHealth and Wuhan Lab and like, why are we still taking advice from that guy when everything he said has been wrong?
Scientifically.
Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You're going to be 100% protected. You're not going to do it. Put a mask back on. Booster's going to be fine. This variant seems to not like the old vaccine, so you better get a booster of the same vaccine.
Mm-hmm. As far as we know, they haven't been continued. Like it's documented from healthcare professionals that the current SARS-CoV-2 treatments were built not using SARS-CoV-2 itself to build the treatment.
Right.
Smallpox, you are given a tiny piece of smallpox.
It was immunizing.
You're given a tiny piece of... Now, not all vaccinations use a tiny piece of the actual illness to do it. But we're beginning to get like steps and steps away further and further steps away from reliability. First of all, the original SARS-CoV-2 treatments, COVID treatments that people call vaccinations, did not have actual SARS-CoV-2 genome in them. So that's one step away from being something that could actually fully prepare your immune system to protect you against that virus. Secondly, they keep having people take the same treatment for further and further variants. So whatever it was built off of originally, we're getting further and further away from. It gives the impression that the vaccine is getting weaker and weaker, and therefore more and more useless.
Right. People say it's dangerous. Doctors, scientists say that it's dangerous to try to vaccinate in the midst of a pandemic because you drive the shift in the virus to mutate around whatever that shot is to become what they call immune escape.
Yeah,
they're just gonna wiggle out of that narrow constraint that you've created, and the vaccines will produce the variants.
We're not saying this.
No,
scientists, virologists know this.
There's links in previous shows. I can find it on one of my pages.
Virologists know this about.
Look at the study of Marek's disease, Maerks, Marek's disease, and it's a disease in chickens where they were trying to vaccinate in the midst of the outbreak, and it drove the spread of variants that worked to get around the vaccine. And so the doomsday prediction that the vaccines for humans, the shots for humans, were going to drive a more deadly variant. And it's been fortunate that it did not. It's driving a more virulent variant, which will crowd out the older variants, I think is the way it's supposed to work. I'm not a scientist, don't take my word for it, but this is the story that I've been following. So let's go back to the NPR article and see what exactly we can do to protect our family. This is NPR telling you what to do.
Very good.
Get a booster as soon as possible.
All right. Health officials are urging Americans to step up COVID safety measures now.
What?
Step up your COVID safety measures because it is spreading. The good news is you don't have to hibernate like it's 2022 or 2020. We're in a much different place than we were last winter. Even if they can't stop all infections, scientists have found that vaccines still offer good protection against severe disease. And if you get a booster, it will likely help restore some protection against infection. Okay, that sentence.
Okay, here's a problem. This is the same problem of people saying, you know what? I got the shots and then I got the virus, but luckily it wasn't as bad
because would have been
because I got the shot that was supposed to protect me from getting the virus.
I need to see that data. Like,
there's no way to say that because people have the shots, now people are dying. I don't see how we're calculating that.
Yeah, where?
Because the virus is mutating faster than the shots. And so therefore, the way people are dying is going to be according to the virus, not the fucking shots.
So this last sentence...
You don't get to credit less dangerous viruses coming out with the success of a vaccine that did not keep people from getting sick or spreading.
Yeah.
But this is what people are like, man, it helped me get through this.
Scientists say that it keeps people from getting sick and spreading.
Scientists say...
And I'm saying I want to see the data.
Show me the data on that, NPR,
show me
motherfucker.
How are you proving that fewer people... How are you proving that people get a less severe case of COVID if they've had the shot? How do you prove...
I haven't seen how they do that.
Hypothesize in your mind.
Yeah.
How would they prove that people get a less severe case of COVID if they've had the shot? How would you prove that?
You would not be able to prove that. You would be able to say, okay, there's these people who are exactly like this person over here, but still.
The number of factors that go into a person's individual health and susceptibility to illness are
the humidity levels are important.
What's the humidity in their house? How is their boss treating them at work?
How much sun do they get?
Do they have a long-distance loved one that recently got in touch with them and divulged deep family secrets that's stressing them out, but they're not telling anybody about it, including the researchers?
Anyway, I'm going to say that's sus because NPR is the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is a big
donor to NPR.
And
I
that's
just like
Johnson & Johnson.
This last sentence.
Yeah.
If you get a booster, it will likely help restore some protection against infection.
That is fucked up.
That is a lot of ifs. If
you get a booster, It will likely help restore some protection against infection.
NPR goes on to say.
Wait, and that's even bullshit. It's not going to keep you from getting infected.
Some protection.
Yeah, show me the data on that.
Yeah, show me
how you came to that conclusion, scientists.
Show me on the data. That said,
So
if this
dumb.
pandemic has taught us anything, it's that when you don't know what you're dealing with, we should invoke the precautionary principle, says Dr. Abrar Karan, an infectious disease physician at Stanford University. In other words, don't panic, but do take steps to reduce your risk. We spoke to several infectious disease experts for advice. Remember, things are changing quickly, so stay alert for new public health guidance. But here's what to do right now. So yet again, they're going to give the American people advice and ignore life-changing medical data that could save lives. Vitamins, minerals, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, these treatments have been proven in countries all over the world and in various parts of the U.S. to save lives and prevent severe hospitalization. But they're not going to tell you about vitamin D.
No.
They're not going to... The CDC, South Africa's website about SARS-CoV-2 says most people are vitamin D deficient, and most people who go into the hospital with severe cases of COVID are extremely vitamin D deficient.
80% that go in.
You should be taking lots of vitamin D. The U.S. medical website, the CDC, says vitamin D will not protect you from SARS-CoV-2.
And I don't think that's true.
It's not true.
Data says otherwise. So that's the difference between policy and science that you're supposed to believe.
So, and I also rebel against this idea. That said, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that when you don't know what you're dealing with, but we do know what we're dealing with.
Okay.
They're going to give us the exact same advice that they gave us 2 years ago, as if nothing has changed and we don't know anything. Get a booster, mask up, upgrade your mask, downsize or cancel the holiday party. That's how you can keep your family safe during the holidays.
Neil Ferguson of the Royal Imperial College there in London is the guy that made the initial models that said we were all going to die from this virus. That was him being, let's just think about the worst case scenario and prepare for that, right? And so all the planning of the mask, the social distancing, the lockdowns, all that came from Ferguson's model saying we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And we have to prepare against that. A couple of months later, it was shown that that was way overblown and it wasn't as bad as they thought. However, the safety first didn't change with the data.
I cannot believe that 2 years later, with a nearly non-existent death rate with this illness, that we're still saying, cancel your family plans, wear a mask, and get these treatments.
Fucking NPR. Be afraid because this virus is spreading. They're not saying... We are so grateful that a less deadly virus is spreading and eating up the rest of the viruses so that hopefully...
We can all just go back to having a cold. Did you know that that's what you do in the wintertime is you get a cold? We're at that point now.
Yep. Huh.
Mark French says, Florida, as a matter of public policy, basically took the position that COVID-19 was a joke and it was business as usual, and they had a death rate of only 0.12%, and it's full of old, vulnerable people. It's full of old, vulnerable people who get a shit ton of sunshine every day. A metric fuck ton of vitamin D in Florida.
What? Old people died? What?
He's saying Florida is full of vulnerable old people, and I'm like, yeah, vulnerable old people who are getting a shit ton of vitamin D, which is why they didn't have as many deaths as they should have had.
Yeah, right.
That's a big part of it. Those are a bunch of people who are living somewhere that they want to be living, doing activities that they want to be doing, and getting a ton of time outside in the sun.
That's a lot of assumptions, but yeah.
I've been to Florida. The toll booth dudes are happy. Like, it was super weird. They're like, really, because they work 6 hours a day and then they're on retirement and they go to the beach.
Yeah.
Like,
getting vitamin D is good for your immune system.
People go to Florida because they want to.
Right.
People who don't want to go to Florida do not go to Florida.
I don't want to go to Florida.
Disney World's in Florida.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
Well, it makes a lot of people happy.
There's other beaches I like better. So, NPR. Back to that article. Get a booster as soon as possible. Do you think they have reason and rationale behind that? Don't delay in getting your booster.
It's better to do nothing. No, it's better to do something than nothing. And we're going to pretend like this is the only thing you could do. That is why you should be mad.
Wait a minute. Omicron has a huge ability to evade antibodies generated by the vaccines, many studies have found. 2 shots will not offer much protection from infection with Omicron, especially if you received the shots more than 3 months ago. Take the thing that this thing has a huge ability to evade.
Just put some in. Just
quickly.
Put some more in you.
That's NPR. A booster will reduce your risk of catching Omicron. Now show me that data. Show me the data where the booster will reduce your risk of catching Omicron and offer enhanced protection against severe disease, which is not what vaccines are supposed to do. I think they're supposed to make you immune to the disease. That's what I thought. So that's what their experts say.
Wow.
And they say vaccine still offers about 70% protection against severe disease. But they don't say for how long. That's kind of an important part of the thing. They just keep saying it protects. And people think vaccines make me immune.
Guess what, guys?
It's dumb.
There are other things.
NPR is making you dumber right now.
There are other things that can protect you.
NPR is scaring you and making you dumber.
There are other, do we need to write a book? Like, there are so many smart people out there lining all of this shit up, whether it's the financial conspiracy stuff or the scientific holes in the mainstream story. Like, there are so many people out there who are putting all of the shit together, and I don't know. We're not going to convince our friends. No. We're not going to convince we can empower our questioning friends to have the information necessary to speak to their loved ones.
Reasonable doubt.
It's starting local.
Yes.
We're empowering you with little pieces of reasonable doubt that you can potentially sprinkle into your loved ones' dinner salads.
The credibility of so many institutions have been shot all to hell in the last several years. This is NPR. A lot of people are like, well, whoever I can go to, I can still go to NPR. This is NPR spreading the narrative.
Science.
The uni-narrative.
Bad information.
Believe science. Believe policy. Don't ask for data. There's no fucking data in any of this. It's all health policy. And when they talk about public health, I think we should just replace that with disease management. Because we are the cash cow now that we're not doing war anymore. Medical is the cash cow.
Yep.
We are disease managed. We don't have public health. If we had public health, they would be talking about vitamin A, D, B, C, and zinc. That would be public health. This is disease management. Be afraid, don't understand anything, and don't ask us to show our fucking homework. This is MP-fucking-R here. This is what the intellectuals are supposed to be listening to, right? Isn't that what the intellectual elite listens to, NPR? Mask up indoors in public places and upgrade your mask. No data showing that is still a thing or ever was a goddamn thing.
In fact, we've seen tons of data from all over the world comparing and contrasting similar groups that did wear masks and did not wear masks, and the death rate is the same.
Negligible difference.
You may have a faster spike of deaths in the area that didn't do masking and social distancing, but the percentage of deaths is the same. What the data suggests is that, much like we know about coronaviruses from time immemorial, whenever we found out about coronaviruses, is that whoever's virus is going to virus.
Yeah.
And bitch is going to die.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And Dark could have been one of them.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah. He smoked cigarettes for 30 years. Like, I might have had some sort of autoimmune I didn't know about. Like, we could have been people who were going to die.
I'm 53 years old. I chain smoked all of my adult life, looking for an easy way out. A lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of chain smoking, no exercise. I go to my doctor, and my doctor's like, "You vaccinated?" I'm like, "Nah." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm like, are you?" And he's like, I felt if he's fit, he's going to ask me. I want to ask him. So I'm like, "Are you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got 2 shots." And this is like a 35-year-old like buff doctor dude who goes to the gym all the time. And I'm like, so he goes, "Yeah, I just got over COVID." So he got the shots like 2 months ago, and then he's like, "Yeah, I just got over my case of COVID, but I guess I'm glad I got the shots, so it probably wasn't as bad." And I'm like, "Well, tell me what it was like." his case was worse than my case as a 53-year-old ex-chain smoking layabout. And he's like, well, thank God I got that thing that was supposed to protect me from the thing, and he got it worse than I did as an old dude. That's a doctor, my doctor, fucking guy I go to.
Right.
I don't talk to him about this stuff so much anymore. I do my own research online.
Oh, no.
YouTube videos, man.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I don't know how far you want to go down into the ridiculousness of the NPR article. I think you can get an idea. Who's responsible for this writing? Some lady. 3 ladies? I don't know. It took 3 ladies to do that?
Getting credit.
3 people to put this together. Okay. Mask up indoors in public places. That's bullshit. Downsize or cancel the holiday party. Let's not be social. You know, when anxiety and issues related to anxiety and fear are the number 2 comorbidity of a disease, best thing we should do is just isolate and not hang out with people we love.
That'll make you healthy.
It's for your health.
That'll make you real healthy.
NPR blows. Use testing to shore up safety. Okay, let's go back to the very beginning where they talk about cases rising. Can we just talk about that bullshit? We talk about it every week. There are more cases. So what they're saying is this virus spreads everywhere. People aren't getting very sick if they get sick.
Yeah.
It's spreading everywhere. And there's a 13% rise in cases that don't do much to people.
It's really, really shitty. Like, these are things to be mad about. Like, our intellects are being taken advantage of by the people in power. As if we don't know that illness is spread.
It's cognitive rape. How's that?
That's a
cognitive molestation.
Yeah, maybe we should stay away from trademarking any phrases that use the word rape.
Yeah,
I would think in this day and age. I agree with the etymology of the phrase.
Me too,
for sure.
Me too.
It absolutely is. It's almost more insidious than that, though.
Me too.
Oh my God, I see what you're doing.
All right. Fucking NPR.
Darren shares really good video on BitChute, Why the Sleepers Keep Sleeping. Trauma therapist talking about the parallels between an abuse at the family relationship level and what the state is doing. This is so much of what we have been doing in especially the second half of season 2 of Post-Orthodoxy, just talking about trauma awareness and being trauma informed and yes?
I'm listening to everything you're saying.
Okay. And the concept of a mass formation, which is a really nice psychological term for mob psychology.
Yeah.
A mass formation happens when people are lonely and anxious and they don't know who to turn to or who to trust, and they have a lot of free-floating aggression and anxiety and some other thing. And then someone comes along and says, here's a bad guy to hate. Here's a good guy to love. Here's things you can do so you know who's on your team.
A rallying point.
And so that you feel little rituals so that you feel like you're part of something and you have something you can do to solve whatever is making you anxious and unhappy.
False sense of power.
And that's exactly what happened last year. People were given an enemy to fight, multiple enemies to fight, and heroes to rally behind, the nurses and Fauci.
Lord Fauci.
Science himself. And rituals to perform to feel as though they were part of a group. So you wear your mask, you see other masked people, you feel safe, you feel you feel a sense of belonging. You see your friends' profile bubbles on Facebook that say vaxxed and loving it or whatever it says, and you feel safe and you feel a sense of belonging and you feel a sense of camaraderie and you feel like you're doing something and you feel like all this free-floating anxiety that you've had for the last decade because your life is pointless and you have no power over your elected representatives is being channeled into doing something to make life better for the people you care about.
I can mass shame people.
I can mass shame
people. I can
people.
find enemies everywhere and be a righteous crusader for the cause.
Mark French says cognitive molestation is completely appropriate for the current manufacture of consent.
Why, thank you. I agree.
Cognitive molestation.
Yeah.
I just feel like people usually know when they're being molested. And and people usually know when they're being molested.
Yeah.
And so we need a more insidious word because what NPR is doing is it's acting like it's like you never get sick in the winter. You should be alarmed if you get sick in the winter. That's what NPR is doing. That's what everybody's doing. They're like, Guys.
It's pretty fucking insidious.
It's shocking and alarming that people are getting sick in the wintertime.
So somehow, like, all the institutions that we used to trust, I think it was a long thing, but it was like, it's like, you know, you ever see the map of like how like a virus takes over, like, and you see the country
red spread, like,
turn red. Yeah. That's what happened with our institutions, where there were some that were like, yeah, that's a dodgy institution, but thank God this one still works, and none of them are working now. Like financial, representative, democratic institutions for public health, institutions for public education, institutions for public safety, institutions for they've all somehow turned a color without people realizing. Yeah. Like they just got infected with this narrative that is it's like an easily provable lie. And yet people are just like, well, I'm not going to say it because then I'll be unpopular. It's the weirdest. You didn't go to public school, so you don't. You're sort of.
I don't know.
You have immunity to that kind of bullshit somewhat because of that.
Yeah.
But if you ever went to public school, you just have to. There's so much go along to get along. Otherwise, you may not get laid.
Yeah, that's the primal thing.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of well-meaning people who are still being motivated by wanting to get laid, whether they're realizing it or not, and they don't realize the people running the planet are not motivated by that.
Right.
Mrs. Yardy recommends the phrase cognitive grooming.
Cognitive grooming. Oh, that's really good.
You don't usually know when you're being groomed
by
an authority figure who is manipulating you and preparing you to receive whatever form of molestation is to come.
Grooming.
I love it.
You both get gold stars, Mark French.
She wrote it first. Mark French walked us down the road.
Yeah.
Right. He walked us there, and she walked us through the door.
Cognitive grooming.
Wow.
So yeah, we still. It's really destabilizing to imagine that all the things that you relied on as responsible institutions, it's like the denial is. It's not hard to have that level of denial because the implications of losing all of your daddies.
Or whatever authority figure or nurturing figure you cling to feel as though you're not alone.
Or insulating
whether it's your
figure.
mommy or your teacher or your pastor or your politician.
Or security or safety.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal for people. Right now, people are feeling unstable. And it's like, how can I be secure and safe?
Well, the mass formation came along and gave you the means to feel safe, which is why we need to have ultimate compassion for our traumatized loved ones that got scooped.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
It's a traumatized kind of country. Other countries have handled this differently.
I'm mad at NPR. I'm going to stay mad for a little bit.
Hey, everybody on Twitch. We have 5 people watching on Twitch right now.
Yep.
Y'all better friend request me back on Twitch. People tuning in on Facebook, leave some angry faces or ha-ha faces to entice future viewers to check out this scandalous video.
What
if you're on YouTube, hit like. We have 2 people watching on YouTube and only 1 thumbs up on the video. So make sure you subscribe and hit the like button.
We have a lover and a hater over there.
I used to be really like averse. I'm still struggling with it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was shallow and pointless of me to like things. You know, I should pay, like, if I see a friend's post, I should only like it if I really like it.
Oh, right. Don't be too loose.
I can't just be like, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to show some discernment, and it gets.
I think that's just kind of an old. Yeah. It's just an old.
Yeah.
It's an old way of thinking.
Right. It's serving it. It has the word like.
It's literally
which
free.
Makes you think that you're supposed to like it, but it's literally just a way of showing support.
Showing that I saw it.
And that you are giving them, the...
Yeah.
What do you call that?
86 people.
The endorphin thing. Give them a little... hit.
Why would I not? If I follow an artist on Instagram who does little videos of her painting
those little
process,
things makes me want to go do more artwork.
Why don't I just sit there sometimes, I'm like, why am I averse to hitting the heart on this video on Instagram? I think something about being a joiner or being sucked into maybe I'm being sucked into the realm or something. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I definitely advocate for you liking all of our shit.
Yeah, like our shit.
Now we have 4 likes on YouTube. That's
nice.
crazy. How do we have 4 likes and only 1 person watching? That's amazing.
I don't know what's going on.
Anyway, these numbers are not accurate.
The CIA doesn't count.
The CIA isn't letting us know, everybody that's tuning in. But that's great. That's really encouraging, guys. Thanks.
Cognitive grooming. I'm going to stick with that one for a second.
Ouch. God. Wow.
So that NPR, I don't think we need to go further. I think you get the idea.
So,
do you know who?
I want to go back to something that a friend of the show shared with us.
Okay, good.
Donna, your friend from... She tuned in a couple weeks ago on our videos and shared articles about how hospitals were being filled up with unvaccinated patients.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Donna, Denise, Debbie. So Denise. Okay. So Denise, Mark French wants to know if he can subscribe on Patreon. We have a subscription basis through our website right now, Mark French. And that is on postorthodoxy.com.
Yeah, you're going to pull it up?
Mm-hmm. It uses Stripe. Super secure. We paid for all the security. And you can do a monthly subscription of $5 or more than $5 if you want to. And if you want to leave us a review, we're also going to be adding a review section on that page so that when people show up there, they're like, oh, it looks like other people who are smart like this show. So maybe I will also like this show. But any kind of support that you can throw our way, we really appreciate because we put a lot of work into this content and these conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can set up a little monthly subscription, and $5 a month is only $60 a year. So
how you feeling about the show today?
It's pretty good.
Are you having a good time?
I am. Thank you very much, Mark.
You want me to make us a couple of cocktails?
You're gonna go away and make cocktails?
I have a video we could watch for a couple of minutes, and I could just make some cocktails real quick. What do you think?
Sure.
If you go to the show page.
I was going to talk about these. I was going to investigate these articles that Denise sent.
Well, I want to set this up while you're investigating. This is something to watch while we can investigate other stuff.
Okay.
So this is on the show page. There's a guy in the polo shirt. I think that's Steve Kirsch.
Oh.
This is part of like a thread.
The biggest fraud in American history?
Yeah, and it is, I guess, Steve Hirsch. So maybe it's worth looking up Steve Hirsch I think it's Steve Hirsch. I think that's who the guy is in the video. But it's just a Twitter video. And if you go to the thread, he has several videos where he's breaking down, he's somebody who's gone contrary to the narrative. And he's a billionaire, so he can do something about it. So he's starting to talk about an ad campaign that he's going to fund to help fucking to help with the narrative collapse. It's like, these bitches canceled me. I'm a fucking billionaire. Fuck you. We're going to collapse your goddamn narrative. So this is a little video where he's sort of laying out a post-Orthodox perspective on what the fuck has been going on and what we should do to keep it from continuing to go on.
Fascinating. So he's just doing a bunch of little videos in a thread.
A thread.
It's a very long. Oh, I just lost the original one. It's a very long thread.
Yeah, it's a very long. So it's number 16 is the one that I was going to
I got it.
I'm going to make us a cocktail. What do you think?
Wait, 15. Nothing is improved. The no mechanism of action can...
Say it again.
There is no mechanism of action that can possibly justify that people are better off after vax. That's what he's saying.
Show me the data on that one.
Show me on the data.
So maybe we can just watch that for a second for our audience to get. I think it might be worth a
I will be sitting here to run
of the thread.
It's only 1 minute and 45 seconds long, so don't hurt yourself running up the stairs. We'll watch another video afterwards.
Watch another one, and I'll come back, and then we'll dig into. Like, I pulled up an article on Steve Kirsch, the first thing that came up on Google, which was talking about how he's a nut, of course.
Oh yes,
so
don't trust that guy.
Yeah, we'll look into that in a second. I'll be right back.
All right,
stay tuned to the show. Maybe. Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, you can go have a bathroom break if you want,
yeah,
or just watch this video with me. Let's see. We're going to go over here. Pull this baby up. Yeah, Darren, we're talking, apparently, it says Steve Kirsch. Steve Kirsch right here. So I don't know what's in this video, but I'm going to watch it with you guys. Oh, wait, no. I have to go to my little page. Okay, let's see.
There's no mechanism of action that could possibly justify that people are going to be better off after getting these vaccinations. Nothing is improved. You are not immortal. You are just the opposite. Your immune system is compromised. You're can be more likely to get COVID. In the UK, they showed that 40-year-olds, after the honeymoon period goes, 40-year-olds were twice as likely to get infected if they were vaccinated. You have, in the US, you have hospitals where you have a 50% vaccination, community vaccination rate, and the hospital admissions are 80% vaccinated people. Okay. You can't make these statistics up. And in fact, the CDC was confronted by these statistics and they just ignored them.
Well, that's why they create their own. That's why they
make up stuff.
They published that paper that was absolute ridiculous nonsense, yet it was accepted by.
Okay, so, all right, pause. Go back. I want you to be able to see this with his face lined up. I need my audio engineer to text me back. Dan.
There's no mechanism of action that could possibly justify that people are going to be better off after getting these vaccinations. Nothing is improved. You are not immortal. You are just the opposite. Your immune system is compromised. You're can be more likely to get COVID. In the UK, they showed that 40-year-olds, after the honeymoon period goes, 40-year-olds were twice as likely to get infected if they were vaccinated. You have, in the US, you have hospitals where you have a 50% vaccination, community vaccination rate, and the hospital admissions are 80% vaccinated people. Okay. You can't make these statistics up. And in fact, the CDC was confronted by these statistics and they just ignored them.
Well, that's why they create their own. That's why they
make up stuff.
They published that paper that was absolute ridiculous nonsense, yet it was accepted by almost everyone who believes the narrative. And nobody try to dialogue with. They'll say, "Look, you get the vaccine, and the risk of dying is going to be 2/3 less."
Yes,
I mean, and they believe it.
Yes,
that's the problem.
Yes, it's like yes. It just shows you this was an existence proof. This paper was an existence proof. This paper shows that the CDC can put out anything. And as long as it has that little CDC logo on it, they're going to believe it. And it was kind of a test. Like the next one will say, hey, we found this drug that will, double your lifespan. And when they come up with this ridiculous stuff, like nobody in the medical community, did you see anyone in the medical community that is disputing this, saying, no.
What happened?
Nothing. We played it.
How was it?
It seems as though he's on Odyssey.
He's
and he's sharing maniac. He's sharing tiny clips from his Odyssey. I'm gonna go there right now.
Okay.
Thank you for the drink, darling.
Yeah.
So he's sharing tiny clips from his Odyssey. 7 views. It's a long show. I want to find the long hour-long show. Let's go find at Firestarter. All right. About his 46 followers.
Really? It's all?
Yeah.
He's a billionaire with 46 followers. That's awesome.
Well.
Or is this somebody just sharing his stuff?
I think this must be somebody just sharing his stuff.
And it's Steve Kirch. Do we know who that guy is?
I don't know who Steve Kirch is.
Oh, well, we're going to look him up right now.
So this is a guy sharing Steve Kirch's video that then Steve Kirch shares?
I don't know how it's getting around.
Maybe he has to do that in order to not get taken down. I don't know. This is very interesting. I'm going to go look at this Steve Kirch guy. Okay. He only has 4,000 followers. Start Fire. I do not consent. Anonylizer 13. So I feel like this is the sort of thing where somebody's sharing.
How do you spell Steve Kirch?
STEVEKIRSCH.
KIRSCH.
It seems like
Steve Kirch, tech millionaire. So this is the first thing that comes up on. This is how we do our stuff, right? This is Google, so put that into context.
Right.
And then the first thing that comes up is technology review. They want me to accept some cookies. I don't want.
You don't want any cookies?
This tech millionaire went from COVID trial funder to misinformation super spreader.
Oh, there was nowhere in between where he suddenly had a reason to stop funding the COVID trials?
Nope. He just went crazy.
Went from COVID trial fund. So when I hear that first part of the sentence, I think this is a person that knows things about COVID trials.
The tech millionaire.
But apparently he didn't.
Went from COVID trial funder to misinformation super spreader.
Oh my God.
Subheading: After boosting unproven COVID drugs and campaigning against vaccines, Steve Kirsch was abandoned by his team of scientific advisors and left out of a job. A billionaire is without a job. In the early days of the pandemic, as billions of dollars poured into the hunt for novel treatments and vaccines, veteran Silicon Valley entrepreneur Steve Kirsch did what he's always done, went looking for an underdog. Anyway, I'll have to read that article.
Wow, whatever this Twitter account is, they're compiling calls for an inquiry into the care home residents who died of broken hearts.
Oh, wow.
A 1981 study from the Annals of the Royal College of Surgeons of England who found that no masks were worn in a particular operating theater for 6 months, and there was zero increase in the incidence of wound infection.
Huh. Yeah, I just found this guy today before the show, so I haven't had a chance to vet any of his stuff. So I don't vouch for this source. I'm just saying, source I found, Steve Kirsch, somebody we've heard of, billionaire gone rogue.
Vaccine ambassadors are being stationed at supermarkets, shopping centers, and transport hubs to encourage people to get #GetBoostedNow. now. We met some of them in Manchester to hear how they're supporting the national effort on #COVID-19 boosters. So these are people standing in a supermarket like the guy that da-ding, da-ding, da-ding.
Oh, like the Hare Krishnas.
Da-ding, da-ding. No.
Oh.
Salvation Army Santas. I don't know. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, it looks religious to me, handing the pamphlets out for our Lord and Savior.
No, they're not just handing the pamphlets out. They're stuffing them in people's shopping carts as they walk by.
Oh, that's invasive.
Yeah. And the boosters again. How about missed cancer scans, heart attacks, strokes?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Stefan Lanka is another person that Anonylizer 713 is sharing. This is very interesting. Spike protein expressed in all parts of the body, especially in pregnant women. So he's linking to sources. To me, this is a great place to start and then go look up all the people and the things that he's posting.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's how we do our work. Like, this is information I didn't get from MSNBC or NPR or Fox News.
Yes.
I didn't get this from there. I got it from this cat. But
this person has a reason to be sharing all this stuff.
Steve Kirsch is a real person. I can go look up and find out about his story and why he went rogue.
His account has been suspended on Twitter.
Yes. He's been censored, banned.
God.
Banished to the hinterland.
All right. So we keep saying, why the hell with the boosters? And folks send us articles like this one that Denise sent us saying, COVID patients in ICU, now almost all unvaccinated, says Oxford scientist.
I haven't been seeing that anywhere on the planet.
And here's another one. Unvaccinated patients are filling Minnesota's ICUs.
Okay.
So what do you do about a headline like that? Like, I feel like I need to call that hospital and be like, are you really talking about unvaccinated patients, or are you talking about patients who've only had a couple of their shots, or like...
You know what? That's a great idea. And I think for us to do that, if you go to postorthodoxy.com, there's a subscribe button. And if we raise enough money, we will do your research for you.
We will definitely call hospitals in Oxford.
We'll do your research for you. Like, I don't trust the sources that are being shared. They've already been shown to be like... We already know...
I mean, who pays The Guardian? Who funds The Guardian? I'm going to go to DuckDuckGo.
They have some good stuff, and they have some, they're just another corporate newspaper that's continuing the narrative, even though they do get edgy sometimes and say, yeah, actually, PCR tests don't work, or whatever,
Who funds The Guardian newspaper? This is from...
Oh, you're on DuckDuckGo.
Interesting facts about newspapers. Who finances The Guardian? Guardian Media Group PLC is a British-based mass media company owning various media operations, including The Guardian and The Observer. The group is wholly owned by the Scott Trust Limited, which exists to secure the financial and editorial independence of The Guardian in perpetuity. Founded by John Edward Taylor, publisher, Guardian Media Group. So Guardian Media Group, who owns the Scott Trust? The Scott Trust Limited is the British company that owns Guardian Media Group and thus The Guardian and The Observer. In 2008, it replaced the Scott Trust, which had owned The Guardian since 1936. Who funds The Guardian Australia? Okay, all right. So
So when you say like a trust means some entity put money into that trust.
Okay, let's go back to DuckDuckGo.
Who put the entity into the trust?
I'm in an incognito window, and I'm going to DuckDuckGo. Scott Trust Limited. Scott Trust Limited is the British Wikipedia. We'll start there. It's the British company that owns the Guardian Media Group and thus the Guardian and the Observer. So that blog completely plagiarized whatever Wikipedia says. The company is responsible, blah, blah. The current chair of Scott Trust Board is Alex Graham. Let's just ask him who he is. Let's see. Born in Glasgow. Who is he related to? That's what I want to know. I'm sure I don't know the names of all of the...
well, the paper's also...
The baddies in the UK circuit.
Right.
You know, like if... I'm beginning to know the names of the baddies in the US news circuit. But I'm not sure if I would see a particular name pop up in the UK, like, oh, the Koch Foundation, or...
Right.
You know.
And know what you're supposed to feel about it.
Yeah. This would take time.
You would have to figure out why you have to feel about those things in blue.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have feelings about it? Guardian has had some good coverage and some shitty coverage. I mean, stuff that's totally... The narrative is not going to be popped by the Guardian. So anyway, that Steve Kirch guy seems like a rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, and I like the idea of looking up... Yeah, I'd like the idea of researching where the Guardian's funding comes from, which would only be a part of the picture, really, you know. But then let's look at this article. COVID patients in ICU now almost all unvaccinated. So does that mean almost all unvaccinated as in like 6 out of 8 people in the ICU are unvaccinated?
Don't know.
And are they people who have never had one of the COVID treatments? All right, let's see. It's no longer a disease of the vaccinated. Nice co-opting of the term. Let's see. Generally, COVID-19 is no longer a disease of the vaccinated. Vaccines tend to limit its suffocating affliction with a few exceptions. Latest wave. Show me some numbers. Show me some data. Oh my God, there's literally no data.
No.
Okay. All right. The latest wave of the virus in the UK, which is now rising rapidly in parts of Europe, will translate into a stream of mostly unvaccinated patients. Wait. The headline of this article said the ICU is full of mostly unvaccinated people. Right. But this study says it will be full of mostly unvaccinated people.
Oh, prognosticators. They have some wizards working there.
I am concerned we do really have quite high levels of transmission in the UK. My personal preference would be that we should really try to get these rates down. We know that masks do work because there are people who are unvaccinated for various reasons, and we do need to try to reduce the level of circulation of the virus, as well as getting up vaccination rates. No single measure by itself is going to be successful. We need the combination of measures, which includes revaccination, third doses, but also wearing masks and being very careful not to transmit the virus. Okay, you do not get to decide whether you transmit it or not. Sorry. Also, it's never going to go away. And also, there will never be no cases.
Yeah, we have to get the cases down of the new variant that is not killing people. We have to keep the old variant that is killing people. We can't bring around the new variant. What? We'll go out of business.
Okay, all right. I'm going to financialtimes.ig.ft.com/coronavirus-chart. I go here all the time for my data. I'm plugging in the US and the UK just for comparison. We're going to look at deaths.
Do they have it? Yeah.
August? No. October? No. September. We'll say since
September of this year.
Because it's December right now.
Some data should be able to come in since September.
Yes. So deaths, new deaths per 100K, which gives us a percentage rather than numbers. Obviously, there are going to be thousands of people who died in New York City because there are millions of people in New York City. But how many people died per 100,000? That's how you level it out. Like there are more people in New York City than there are in the entire state of Montana, which is as big as the entire country of Germany. So obviously there are more deaths total in New York City than there are in Montana, but how many people died per 100K?
Yeah, that's a good thing to know.
All right, so
what?
It just keeps going down.
Oh.
It's just a chart of down.
Oh my God, the Omicron's here.
We really have to just stop this. Just have to stop it. Okay, so I really want to know what happened. All right, so you're seeing this.
Yeah.
The UK deaths are currently at 7-day rolling average of deaths in the UK. Less than a quarter of a person.
We've got to get this under control.
Guys, I care.
Shun your family members.
Don't go for Christmas. But guess what? I care about more than just COVID deaths. Because
what?
You know what
That's the most important death right now. No other death matters.
You know what we don't have right now is a chart showing how many people have died of suicide in the last 3 months.
Yeah, I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Nobody's collating that data. This data is being drawn from Johns Hopkins, World Health Organization, UK government coronavirus dashboard, various other World Health and government organizations. And they're constantly posting retractions when governments adjust their data based on new information. I really like it when you smoke and then the smoke sort of comes up on top of your head and sort of like dances around on top of your head and doesn't go anywhere for a minute. It's weird. I don't know why. Yeah, it like does a little dance party on top of your head.
Thanks.
You should do that again.
I'm going to get really stoned if I do it again.
But I want people to see it. And then like, mirror. Oh, I didn't do that time. Oh, well, you got stoned for no reason. Sorry.
I know.
Okay, all right, let's look at cases. Cases are going up.
Oh, yeah?
7-day rolling average. The UK currently has more than 100 cases per 100,000.
Okay.
While deaths continue to decline. This is what we want. This is normal.
This should be good news.
This is good news, and it's normal.
That headline should be good news.
Good news, everyone. Also,
more people getting the virus, less people getting sick and dying. Good news. That should be good news.
Nowhere in that newspaper article did it say what they were talking about when they said...
You read the whole thing?
The headline says, COVID patients in ICU now almost all unvaccinated, says Oxford scientist.
Do you have that one thing that we did? It was like the newspaper article that was like, 3 people died from COVID. And it was like, 12 people died. 3 of them had COVID, though. You know, it was like one of those things where they're just like, what the fuck?
I don't even know where that is. But yeah, he says the latest, here. Pollard. One of those scientists behind the AstraZeneca vaccine said COVID would still pile pressure on the national health system of Britain this winter, with unvaccinated patients requiring intensive care and double-jabbed patients who are older and frail still at risk of life-threatening health issues. I hate all these new classist labels. I follow an artist on Instagram today, and she posted a beautiful little video of herself doing a watercolor process art, and she said, for her caption on her beautiful video, she said, like if you're vaccinated, comment if you're boosted. Just throw up in your mouth a little bit.
Why?
Like, get the fuck out of here.
What the fuck? Oh, so you have more freedom to interact if you're boosted, is what she's saying.
No. It's
no,
just
only like if you're...
No, it's just... She just
fuck
wants...
All that.
She just... It's a numbers. It's a little poll. People do that a lot. Like they'll post a picture of like Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Severus Snape, and Draco Malfoy. And they'll be like, leave a heart emoji if you think Hermione should marry Harry Potter, and leave a like emoji if you think Hermione should marry Ron Weasley, and leave a laugh emoji if you think Hermione should read. You know, so it's that sort of thing.
I'm reading. No, I think it's different. Say the thing again about...
Like if you're vaccinated, comment if you're boosted.
Right. You can like if you're vaccinated. But you can only comment if you're completely boosted.
Most recent boost.
Yeah, because the unvaccinated are the vaccinated are sort of down. they're not really in compliance unless you get the booster, right? So
they're
you
not
only
really saving lives anymore.
You only get to like. You can only comment if you've been boosted.
I'm seeing it in a much more insidious way now.
That's how I like to see things that way.
Well, this is why we're good foils for each other. Guys, take a minute and invite a couple of friends. We'll keep talking as long as there are folks around to talk with. Do you have any comments?
Oh, hell yeah. And you saw what we were doing with the Twitter thing. Follow us on Twitter.
Yeah,
If
please.
you do the Twitter thing, and even if you don't do the Twitter thing, you can still go to Twitter because that's where we're posting most of our informational starting points that we look at before our show. So if you want to sort of get an idea of where we're coming from and the view, now we don't agree with everything that we post, but sometimes I'm showing stuff just because that's a vector.
Yeah. And we are doing an
story.
extra long show today. Normally we'd wrap it up about now, and that's great. We are doing
do another cocktail.
We're doing an extra long show today. However long it seems like you'd like to hang out and talk. If you have anything in particular that you want to talk about, we have the whole Rothschild thing. Where are you going?
I'm going to take my robe off now.
Oh, yeah? Are you warm enough?
Yeah.
It's such a good look for you, though.
Okay. Back.
So anyway, Denise, and thank you for tuning in a couple weeks ago and sharing these articles, Denise. But this article should make you be suspicious of your news sources because they used a headline in a day and age when we know most people don't read past the headlines of articles. They used a headline that said, COVID patients in the ICU are now almost all unvaccinated people.
And then they don't back that up with any information or data.
It's actually a lie.
Yeah.
Because the Oxford scientists did not say that COVID patients in the ICU are almost all unvaccinated. He said, if we're not careful and get our boosters, COVID patients in the ICU will be mostly unvaccinated people.
Prognosticating, yes.
He's making a hypothesis, and it would be perfectly fine if the Guardian would like to print a news article saying Oxford scientist hypothesizes that COVID patients this winter will be all mostly unvaccinated people. That would be accurate. That would be accurate journalistic reporting. I still can't even find the scientific article. The latest wave of the virus in the UK, which is now rising rapidly in parts of Europe, will directly translate into a stream of mostly unvaccinated patients entering the ICU, he said in the article, jointly offered with Professor Brian Angus, a professor of infectious disease at University of Oxford. To prevent serious illness, these people need first and second doses of the vaccine as soon as possible.
Oh, so yeah, that's policy. He's talking about policy again. He's not talking about actual data.
He's not talking about something that's happening right now.
No.
He's talking about something that he believes will happen this winter, but the Guardian reports it as if it is happening now. So unfortunately, that article does not support Denise's perspective that unvaccinated people are the ones who are getting it worse right now. Let's look at the other article. Unvaccinated patients are filling Minnesota's intensive care units. I'm not going to go into who funds the Star Tribune because I generally just don't trust any mainstream news source in the U.S. at all.
They're a part of the narrative.
It's a launch platform to go and try to find information and data to see what my friends and neighbors are reading about.
Yep.
But in general, most news sources in the U.S. are funded and corrupt.
The narrative slant is sus.
The doctors and nurses. Oh, I'm not even reading this emotional.
Oh, can we skip this one?
God.
Oh, we'll just do it. It's like the CNN one where the doctor was all
so
like,
emotional.
I just feel like this stuff. I'm like, oh, well, thanks, doctor.
Yeah. Mark French says, I had the virus twice before being vaccinated to ease travel restrictions to cities I have to work in sometimes. I absolutely refuse to get boosted. The whole thing has just shown corruption and idiocy. I'm literally like texting friends and loved ones and being like, I really hope you're not getting the booster because like
You are?
Yeah.
You're not a doctor.
I can say, I hope that you're not getting it.
Yeah.
And only to some people. Like, I have a family member who's in the military and be like, I really hope that you're able to get some sort of exemption.
They just shot down the religious exemption for the military.
Oh, God. Yeah, I just saw an article that like several thousand Marines retired over the week or were dishonorably discharged because they refused to get the shot.
Yeah, and they're not doing the religious exemption either, which it shouldn't have to be. It should be a constitutional exemption like your dad used.
Right.
It should totally be used.
It's unconstitutional.
A viable thing. Yeah.
All right. So Unvaccinated Minnesota COVID and non-COVID patients combined to leave. Okay. Minnesota reported a 2021 record of 1,678 COVID-19 hospitalizations on Thursday, and that COVID and non-COVID patients combined to leave only 18 out of 1,012 staffed adult ICU beds open. Okay, let's unpack that. So they're having more hospitalizations. They do not say how many of those 1,678 COVID hospitalizations were unvaccinated people. So we don't know.
We don't know.
Many of those people were probably vaccinated and many were probably unvaccinated, but we don't know how many.
And we don't know why they're at the hospital. Are they there with or
are they there because of complications of COVID-19, or are they there for something else?
They have other comorbidities.
I had a friend who went in to get her annual gynecology exam, and they did a COVID test on her and told her she was sick, even though she wasn't sick.
So she was COVID at the hospital.
She was counted as a COVID case in the hospital.
That's awesome.
All right. COVID and non-COVID patients combined to leave only 18 of 1,000 ICU beds open. Okay, this is normal. We don't normally have a lot of ICU beds lying open.
Yeah.
But this is the first time you and your loved ones have been hearing about ICU beds.
Yeah, how many beds did we make during the last, with all the pandemic money? Like, how many new hospitals and beds did we spend money on? Because they're so full.
I know we built a bunch of prisons recently.
There's been 4 big prisons.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of like new
ICU beds or wings.
They actually limited beds because of distancing.
Right.
To the things.
So
it's Palo Santo.
Oh, Palo Santo, yeah. So this is why we need to be very careful about what people are saying to us. COVID and non-COVID patients combined. So there are a bunch of people in the ICU. Some of them are in the ICU with COVID. Some of them are in the ICU without COVID.
No numbers.
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
18 beds available in Minnesota as of that week of the report. And they're talking about staffed. They're very careful. 18 out of 1,000 staffed ICU beds.
So when they fired a bunch of staff for not having the vaccine, that might have limited the amount of staffed rooms they could have. What do you think? You think that might be a thing? I'm glad they said staffed.
They're covering their asses.
Thank God there's integrity in their journalism.
Let's see if the headline is ever supported.
Okay.
Let's see. Amidst wows and cheers, Dr. Hassan smiled and wished she could have given the team positive news like her colleague said. Okay, I hate this kind of emotional shit in my news. No. All right.
Show me the data.
Show me the data. This is the news. This is not like an emotional TikTok video,
no,
okay?
it's infotainment.
Breakthrough infections in fully vaccinated Minnesotans have become a larger share of the state's pandemic wave this fall. That doesn't sound like what the headline was saying.
It sounds the opposite of that.
Prompting recommendations for booster doses because of waning immunity from initial shots. Vaccinated people made up little more than 20% of coronavirus infections and COVID-19 hospitalizations at the beginning of the latest wave in July. By the last week of October, vaccinated people made up 45% of infections and 33% of hospitalizations. Okay, so those are going up. Let's see. Collectively on Tuesday, the Alena and Sanford Hospital Systems of Minnesota reported 124 COVID-19 patients in ICU, and 114, or 92%, were unvaccinated. So now, at this point, because I know I've been lied to by the news and the government, because I know I've been lied to, I need to call those hospital systems and find out if all of those patients that were marked as unvaccinated had actually not received any of the COVID-19 treatments yet. Because I have been lied to by the news and the government in the past, where they have said that people were in the hospital not fully vaccinated, which implies that they're unvaccinated
At this point, it might just mean they haven't had the booster.
At this point, they might be calling them unvaccinated if they haven't had the booster.
These are the things that we could know.
We could know these things.
And we probably should know to make an informed perspective on this story.
You know what's easier than this, the doctor said?
Oh, you're reading it the way I do. Read it like NPR.
9 unvaccinated COVID-19 patients filled all 9 staffed? Fucking love that.
Yep.
9 unvaccinated COVID-19 patients filled all 9 staffed ICU beds on Friday at St. Joseph's Medical Center in Brainerd. 3 patients needing intensive care were receiving it instead in the emergency department. Dr. Greg Davis, the ICU director, recalled a cardiac arrest during an emergency procedure last week and a response team rushing in to save the COVID-19 patient. You know what's easier than all of this, he said, looking up at the relieved team after the patient was stabilized, getting 2 shots.
All right.
If the story were true, and the shots kept you from going into cardiac arrest in the hospital, and if the story were true that you go into cardiac arrest at the hospital because of this virus, then yes, it would be easier to just get 2 shots. But we have way too much evidence that neither of those things are true.
It does feel a bit manipulative.
Mark French says
like cognitive grooming, perhaps.
It's weird that you get sick in the wintertime.
Get to the point in the article where they talk about avoiding getting seriously ill by taking vitamin D, C, A, zinc, and
early treatments you can do to prevent hospitalization and intubation.
I'm sure they get to that.
I'm sure they let people know how to not die.
Like, if that's the case, then at the end, they should tell people how to not get sick and go to the hospital through established protocols that have been saving lives. That's probably somewhere at the bottom of the article, right?
Yeah. The median age of COVID-19 patients who died in intensive care in Minnesota over the past 7 months was 82.
Okay. 7 months? 7 months?
Range, median, mode, and mean. What does median mean? Because this is important.
Yeah.
It's a way of looking at statistics. The median is the middle number. This is not the average. The median is the middle number in a sorted list of numbers. So if you have the number 1, the number 3, the number 7, the number 8, the number 9, blah, blah, blah. The median is the physically middle number.
Interesting.
Yeah. What a weird statistic to pull. It's not the most people who died were about 82. It's not what it's saying.
The number in the middle.
That would be the mean or the average. You would say the average age, the mean age of people who died was 82. That's what you think you're reading when you see this, but that's not what the Star Tribune is saying. They're saying the median age. So we had a 60-year-old and a 80-year-old and an 82-year-old and an 85-year-old and a 90-year-old. So the median age is the 82-year-old, the one in the middle. Physical age in the middle, who died in intensive care the past 7 months was 82 for those who were vaccinated and 69 for those who were unvaccinated. While this partly reflects a higher vaccination rate among the elderly, State Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm also said it accentuates the risk, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, I think that's the key.
Our stories are baby food, and people are like, I don't want that to be my mama bird puking information in my mouth.
I know people who have a hard time with people who don't get vaccinated, said Reynolds, 66, a retired IT analyst for North Memorial. But I just don't want it. I just don't want the vaccine. Reynolds talks to his wife and plays music that she likes while the 69-year-old is on a ventilator. Their last back-and-forth communication was on November 28th when her oxygen depletion was so bad that she couldn't text cohesive words.
Was the story with the lady? What else is going on with her? Or?
They're not saying.
So okay.
Terry Reynolds of Plymouth has seen the impact on an almost daily basis since his wife Carolyn was declared no longer infectious and he was allowed to visit her. On Wednesday, he bowed his head at her bedside and prayed after 3 weeks of intensive care that she would recover from COVID-19. He prayed too for all the patients on the floor, but the experience hasn't changed his mind on vaccination. Safety concerns and vaccinated friends who got COVID-19 have left him with no confidence in the shots. Yeah. All right. Well, I think there's no way for us to really know what's going on in Minnesota unless we actually get a hold of hospital records. Right. I mean, I know nurses here in Butte who would talk with patients and say, your chart says that you're unvaccinated. Would you like to get one of the shots? And they'd be like, I actually just got mine like 3 weeks ago, but I only got one of them, so I'm waiting for the second one. Or I got it, but it was only 2 weeks past. Or I've got my vaccines, but I haven't got my booster. But their chart keeps coming up as unvaccinated.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Mark French says, when Dark cited the Cornell breakout, it showed concretely that vaccines did absolutely nothing to stop transmission, which means I could have been quarantined immediately in some cities, which could have got me kicked off a project potentially or maybe sued. So he specifically got the shots so that he could go to work sites and be presumed safe.
Right.
When in fact, if we're actually trying to prevent, if we're trying to like be like the International Space Station and keep the virus out of the workplace,
right,
he should have gone into quarantine for 2 weeks, even with the shots, because the shots do not keep you from transmitting the virus.
Right.
But we've created this class system.
It's a class system for sure.
Where we act like people are different, and they're not different.
Right. I found something just before the show. Unless we do we? Where were we even? What are we talking about?
I was going through those articles that Denise shared.
Okay, so we're done with those articles now?
Yeah, the Guardian article was bad news, and the headline was lying.
Right.
And the Minnesota Star Tribune article is very emotional and sharing a lot of mixed statistics that don't support the headline. But the one section where they did share information that seemed to support the headline, that there are more unvaccinated people in ICU beds in Minnesota than vaccinated people, doesn't have any hospital data to back it up, at which point I know, because the news and the government have been lying about how many people are actually vaccinated or not in the hospital.
Yeah.
I know that barring calling the Minnesota hospital systems and asking them on that week how many of those people were vaccinated or not in actual fact, I won't ever really know.
Right.
So unfortunately, the Star Tribune did not cite their sources with data.
So I know a lot of the opinion.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter, though.
That's good. A lot of the opinions of people in my community has come from what we learned early in this pandemic to call availability bias. Say it 3 times and it's true kind of thing.
Whatever you're used to hearing most, you tend to start thinking is the reality.
Right. And I think we mentioned this last week a little bit, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of our audience another time, because this is one of those things that got stuck in my craw a few months ago that I feel like it's so justified in crowing about. So last week we talked about how John Stossel sued Facebook for defamation of character because they labeled one of his posts misleading. And then Meta, or Facebook, whatever you want to call them, they weaseled out by saying, well, our fact checks are actually protected as opinion. That's what they actually said. So that admission has opened the door for a few other wounded players to go talking to Facebook. And they're...
Really?
Yeah. So if you go to the page, the thing I put at the very bottom, this is from the BMJ. I'll look up the BMJ so you know who they are exactly.
Brigham Young?
No, the BMJ is like, let's see here. Where's the about? Our company.
Intended for healthcare professionals, it says at the top.
Yes. So it's a journal. It's a healthcare journal.
Not intended for you.
Right. This is for
professionals. Because you're
professionals.
just a plebe.
This is for
and you can't know things.
that covers, it's in a lot of countries, right? So the BMJ is a sort of well-known, fairly well-respected medical journal. What I have found is, what do we have here? Let me find my piece. There's a link at the bottom under that headline. COVID-19 researcher blows whistle on data integrity issues. Oh, wait, that's not the thing that I want.
It's not? I already pulled it up and everything.
Okay, well, let me...
Open letter from the BMJ to Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, that. Yeah, okay, good. Start reading that.
COVID-19.
Read it like NPR.
Researcher blows the whistle on data integrity issues in Pfizer's vaccine trial. You could know about this. We've read those.
We talked about it on our show several times.
Rapid response. An open letter from the BMJ to Mark Zuckerberg. Huh. So there's an article and then a response. Interesting. Okay. Open letter from the BMJ to Mark Zuckerberg. Dear Mark Zuckerberg, we are Fiona Godley and Cameron Abbasi, editors of the BMJ, one of the world's oldest and most influential general medical journals. We are writing to raise serious concerns about the fact-checking, quote-unquote, being undertaken by third-party providers on behalf of Facebook and Meta. In September, a former employee of Ventavia, a contract research group company helping carry out main Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine trial, they're not messing up. My words are messing up.
Okay.
In September, a former employee of Ventavia, a contract research company helping carry out the main Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine trial, began providing the BMJ with dozens of internal company documents, photos, audio recordings, and emails. These materials revealed a host of poor clinical trial research practices occurring at Ventavia that could impact data integrity and patient safety. We also discovered that despite receiving a direct complaint about these problems over a year ago, the FDA did not inspect Ventavia's trial sites. The BMJ commissioned an investigative reporter to write up the story for our journal. The article was published on November 2nd, following legal review, external peer review, and subject to the BMJ's usual high-level editorial oversight and review. But from November 10th, readers began reporting a variety of problems when trying to share our article. Some reported being unable to share it. Many others reported having their posts flagged with a warning about, quote, missing context. Independent fact-checkers say this information could mislead people. Those trying to post the article were informed by Facebook that people who repeatedly share quote-unquote false information might have their posts moved lower in Facebook's news feeds. This happened to Dark.
Yep.
We got one of those warnings. You can keep sharing this, but just so you know, if you do, we'll probably limit your viewership.
We'd hate to see something happen to your post.
The BMJ goes on. Group administrators, where the article was shared, received messages from Facebook informing them that such posts were, quote, partly false. Readers were directed to a, quote, fact check performed by a Facebook contractor named Lead Stories. They're sharing sources with each of these things.
Okay, Lead Stories, by the way, is a fact checker that we dealt with. I did a whole article about it, or at least we devoted a part of a show to it. Lead Stories is operated by the RAND Corporation. The RAND Corporation is a military intelligence contractor, just so you know, that specialize in propaganda and public relations between the military-industrial complex and the general folk. So that's who Lead Stories is, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for all these emojis, guys, too. We find the, quote, fact check performed by Lead Stories to be inaccurate, incompetent, and irresponsible. It fails to provide any assertions of facts that the BMJ article got wrong. Mm-hmm. It has a nonsensical title. This is a problem. Yeah. Most people don't even get past the words fact check.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the nonsensical title, quote, fact check. The BMJ did not reveal disqualifying and ignored reports of flaws in Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine trials, which is exactly what the article was about. The BMJ did actually reveal ignored reports of flaws.
Fact check.
Yeah, the FDA ignored reports of flaws in Pfizer's vaccine trials. The first paragraph inaccurately labels the BMJ a news blog. Holy shit.
Wow, what a diss.
JAMA, a
That's
news blog.
That's a diss.
Journal of American Medical Association, a news blog. Excuse me. It contains a screenshot of our article with a stamp over it stating flaws reviewed, despite the lead stories article not identifying anything false or untrue in the BMJ article.
We've covered this on
This
several
happens
posts.
over and
show.
over again. The fact checkers are not actually dealing with what the topics of the articles are.
Ironically, they're giving you misleading information.
Yeah, they're lying to you, but they're designed to make you mistrust whatever your friends are sharing because you're not going to click on it.
Yeah.
Okay, the BMJ continues. It published the story on its website under a URL that contains the phrase hoax alert.
Mm-hmm.
We have contacted Lead Stories, but they refuse to change anything about their article or actions that have led to Facebook flagging our article. We've also contacted Facebook directly, requesting immediate removal of the fact-checking label and any link to the Lead Stories article, thereby allowing our readers to freely share the article on your platform. There's also a wider concern that we wish to raise. We are aware that the BMJ is not the only high-quality information provider to have been affected by the incompetence of Meta's fact-checking regime. To give another example, we would highlight the treatment by Instagram, also owned by Meta, of Cochrane, the international provider of high-quality systematic reviews of medical evidence. Rather than investing a portion of Meta's substantial profits to help ensure the accuracy of medical information shared through social media, you have apparently delegated the responsibility to people incompetent in carrying out this crucial task. So Meta could have used someone who's actually experienced in reviewing medical data and journalistic articles.
Oh, but they use the Rand Corporation.
Fact-checking has been a staple of good journalism for decades. What has happened in this instance should be of concern to anyone who values and relies on sources such as the BMJ. And then they have a bunch of sources.
So if you go back to the show page and look, this is a screenshot from the Rand Corporation, who funds the people that wrote that article. And it's a pie chart showing who funds the Rand Corporation.
Or Lead Stories or the Rand Corporation?
Rand Corporation is who is funding Lead Stories.
Oh, Objective Analysis, Rand Corporation. Objective Analysis, Effective Solutions, Revenue with an asterisk.
Yeah. Revenue.
Okay.
Wow. I just did a screenshot, but I can send you the link. I'll put the link up too.
Wow.
Yeah.
$349 million. 2020 net of subcontracts and Rand-initiated research. So I'm looking at about 75% military funding.
Yeah.
Revenue. Secretary of Defense, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, Department of Homeland Security.
That's who's checking the BMJ's article. Some offshoot of this funding.
Oh, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and related agencies.
So anyway, that's factcheck.org is a front for operated by the Rand Corporation. Just
Lead
FYI.
Stories.
Yeah, Lead Stories.
Yeah.
Those guys.
So that's concerning because
so when I say how did that get into my eyeballs? Well, it came from government funding and military funding is how it got into my eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's how Lead Stories got into my eyeballs is the U.S. government, military arm, propaganda arm, fact-checked an ancient medical journal and lied.
And lied a lot. I have to go to the bathroom. Do you want to end the show or do you want me to go to the bathroom?
Oh, I'll
come back.
I'll say stuff.
Okay, say stuff.
Oh, I should be over there operating I got to learn how to operate the ship so I can squeeze around. All right, so the time is 2:35. I appreciate everybody who's in. Is anybody still? They changed the emoji thing on me on the show, so I used to just be able to repeatedly click angry faces and send up a cascade of angry faces, but now they don't let me do that. They've punished me, and I can only click one angry face per show. So For those that we told you how to get to postorthodoxy.com earlier, and that's where we have our subscribe page and our badly worded propaganda. We haven't fully got our propaganda pitch on the page together, but this is what we do the show for. So if you go there and you have the subscribe page, $5 a month is all we're asking. You can go higher if you want. But we just opened up the portal to start receiving support from folks that appreciate the work we're doing on the show. And we are also now publicly promoting our new web page that Post-Orthodoxy is a subset of. You can go to Better Time, and that's BETTERTI.me. It's not like that and then .com or .org. It's Better Time, but BETTERTI.me. And then that's the website that has Ainsley's bio and resume, my bio and resume, stories about whatnot happened back then. For context here, and that is going to be updated on a fairly regular basis. That's why we're taking a break. This is our last show of 2021. And we'll be back in January with maybe a different focus. The Corona narrative has been a great roller coaster ride. And but it feels like it's starting to feel... It's like a series on the third season. The third season is always like it starts to get successful, and then they hire new writers who are relatives of the producers, and then everything sort of goes to hell. I feel like that's where we are in the Corona narrative. It's worked great so far, and now they're going to get sloppy, and it stops being as interesting as it was before. So maybe, hopefully, over the holidays, we'll move into a new iteration of fuckery that we can then draw parallels between and hopefully start having feelings about it enough to do something about it. That's the sort of, general plan. Maybe for those that are listening and watching on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, maybe even Twitter, take a moment before you leave the show to tell us what you learned this year. What's the big lesson that showed up for you in the course of 2021. A lot of people have different feelings about 2021, about what it was to them. I had a pretty good time for the most part, even though it's a crazy narrative going on and all that. I wasn't having a bad time.
Mark French says, Rand Corporation did good work and showed a $50 trillion transfer of wealth from the 90% to the 1% from 1975 to 2018. So make that $56 trillion now.
Yeah, so their budget, they're a good return on the investment, it seems like.
He also says, please get into the illegal prosecution of Julian Assange.
God.
It puts shows like yours at risk.
It does.
Yeah, we're definitely at risk.
We're obviously not that risky because we're still here. And thanks for everybody who's paying attention to us. And thanks for not being a bunch of people, because then...
Yeah, I like how you guys strategically only show up in 10s and 20s instead
we appreciate
of
this is a part of the plan.
Like all 500 of you watched all at once, Facebook would have to can us.
This is how we can still operate out in the open. Okay, so...
Darren in Ireland says, guys, I learned to love everyone, and I truly do on a base level, even when I perceive they do bad things. This situation hurts a lot, but there has been a lot to learn.
Right. I think this has been a tremendous year for sort of...
It sounds like you're talking about compassion.
Sociology.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned to have a lot of compassion for people. And in order to have compassion for people, I had to find a way to accept that I have the ability, I have intellectual or psychotherapeutic abilities that not everybody has, which means that I can learn and grow and evolve in ways that some people don't have access to because they haven't learned those things or they're too traumatized or whatever. And I have to accept that without being egotistical in order to have compassion for someone. Otherwise, I'm just going to get mad at them for not learning and growing like I'm learning and growing.
I think it's amazing that our friend in Ireland found the show. And I thanks for, he's just been sticking in for the whole show.
I love it. Thank you. We normally only do about 2 hours.
I appreciate sticking around for the show. Yeah, we're just having a good time here. And thanks for participating in the thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny how you found us.
And I think Mark, he found Dark. He Googled Dark after watching Saved by the Bell.
And like, who the fuck is that guy? And where is he now? And then he just tuned in, and here we were.
Here we are.
because of Saved by the Bell. And I couldn't help.
You can't be mad, man.
After a couple of hits of the joint, I was sort of like, what are the odds that like he's like has this perspective and then just tunes into some guy that was acting badly 30 years ago. And then here we are like having a nice sort of
and wanted to look you up and
bonding
then found
conversation
us.
where we feel like we're on the same page and there's this sort of sense of like usually when you like find some celebrity, there's some asshole. It's always been the thing. Like, oh God, I wish I'd never met him because then thanks for sticking around for the show.
And thanks for following us.
Yeah, that's fun.
Appreciate you.
We'll do a Saved by the Bell special edition. And I'll tell you the story of what happened, the behind the scenes. Did I ever actually kiss Kelly?
There used to be a blog article about like what happened to all of Kelly's paramours. Like someone had hypothesized like they dated for 3 weeks, but then it fizzled out because Dark's character like moved to England or something. You know, it was like.
There was in the early days of Facebook, there was a Facebook fan page called Thanks, I Love Rolls, which was one of the lines that I uttered woodenly in that episode. And it just became a Facebook page where people who loved Saved by the Bell would congregate and talk about it based off the line of my guest star character.
That's so sweet.
It's weird. It's weird.
You're evolving your memories, my dear.
Yeah, I still get residual checks. I get sometimes $12 check. I think I got like a $23 check last one.
Darren says that would honestly be awesome.
What part?
If you did a Saved by the Bell episode.
I'd have to make another cocktail. Just do one right now.
No, we have to do it separately and talk about it in advance. We have to tell that Instagram lady that tagged you in a photo a couple weeks ago.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You guys are so funny and so honest. Can't wait to watch more. Didn't you want to build a map?
Oh, God, I don't know if we can do it.
No?
Like,
you're quitting 45 minutes post?
No.
That's fine.
I might just have to...
I'd be happy to go eat. I like eating.
I know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, we could take a break.
No.
We could play that guy, Steve Kirsch.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. Sorry. This is an experiment to see if we would actually be able to do 12 hours without cocaine.
I would have to prepare for 12 hours.
We would have to have friends in the studio, I think, who also like talking.
Right. Get the peanut gallery together.
Put some friends on the couch and give them a camera and a microphone.
Yeah.
Cut to them and they have awesome commentary.
Drinks
all around.
Yeah, we'll do a special Saved by the Bell episode.
So let's
like
talk.
Us, follow us
38,
on Facebook.
38 episodes.
Get the alert. What? From this season?
Yeah, 38. Yeah. This is the end of season 2.
That's right.
We're going to stream. You know we're going to stream over Christmas and New Year's. There's too much shit. Yeah, we're not going to not come talk to you guys.
Post-Orthodoxy special edition.
Yeah. In-betweener shit, you know.
Post-Orthodoxy booster shot.
No. Just a little something to get you through the holidays.
Yeah, you know.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
Safe and effective.
I am.
I'm just gonna. That should be our byline.
Post-Orthodoxy, safe and effective.
Safe and effective.
It's not really safe though.
Well, it just
like
depends.
We specifically do.
We could say safe and effective.
I guess it depends on your definition of safe. It's definitely not comfortable.
Yeah.
We definitely don't talk about things comfortably.
It will not put undue wear on your tires.
Mark says, I can't do anything for 12 hours without cocaine. I can't even live. No, I hear you. And I'm thinking like, oh gosh, what do we do? We could get a marathon. It's an uplifting booster for sure, says Darren.
We've been planning on doing like a marathon to start promoting the webpage and
subscription model
and the subscription model and getting some people in, getting some people in the door, and then having more of a conversation with people, being able to play with our technology over 12 hours and say, hey, somebody wants to Skype in, somebody wants to like zoom in from Uruguay. And then I'm like, well, how do we do it? And then we could have a guest on the show. Suddenly, I want to do like an exploratory open house.
We could do that.
Post-Orthodoxy, where we're just like,
we could bring people on the camera, like.
Hey, does anybody know anybody who does Hugel culture? It's like, yeah, I know this guy in Germany that we wake him up and then zoom him in and have like a free flowing sort of like test the capacity of the.
I know that we could do that.
The web of the show.
I don't know if I could stay awake to do that. I would need to get one of those cushy mats for under my feet.
We need to have one of those like TV things that just puts up the like elevator music.
Yeah, but then you lose all your streamers. We'll
Maybe
figure
it
it
could
out.
be slightly pornographic. Slow motion cleavage jiggle or something.
Oh,
That's legal,
and then people would stay.
Oh, they would totally stay.
Yeah, then they would stay.
And then we'd come back and then they would leave.
Oh, they'd be like, you know what I need to go do now is watch some more porn. Now that you've got it in my mind. We before we officially started Post-Orthodoxy, the very first show that Dark and I produced together was called Copacetic Conversations, and it included a friend of ours from South Africa who was really the star of the show, Mokai Molope, and he would interview Americans with strong beliefs. So we interviewed a Catholic priest and a pro-lifer lady, and we interviewed an Antifa guy and a Republican voter that had 5 daughters and was a total feminist.
Libertarian.
Blue
Dog Democrat.
Yeah, so he would interview people with strong opinions and be like, how can you have strong opinions and also not be an asshole to people? You know, like, how do we talk about difficult subjects in a productive way? And then he had to go back to South Africa. And we were like, what do we do? Dark was like, you know, our life is so weird. We should just do a vlog, a journal every night. And me being me, I can't like just do something for no reason unless I, like a whole plan. And so we never did do the vlog.
Well, the vlog was actually just for us. I just wanted to start like so much shit happens
but
every day.
I was like, if we're going to do this, if we're going to sit with a camera and talk about our weird day, we should stream it because that's stuff that people tune in for. And then we could have followers. And so then it became a whole thing. And then we didn't do it as much. But that's what I do.
That was Breakfast in Bed with Freud.
Coffee in Bed with Freud.
Oh, yeah.
So we did Coffee in Bed with Freud. And it was a little salacious. I wore nighties and things. And every single stream, somebody would ask if Dark was my daddy.
Yep. No, dad.
Father.
Daddy was a different.
Dad, father.
Different
Is that your father? Is that your dad?
Right.
So that was kind of funny. But then we kind of officially we're like, no, Post-Orthodoxy. We're going to do it.
Right.
We're going to talk about our lives just with more clothing on.
Yeah.
But I'd be perfectly happy. I'd be perfectly happy to wear online appropriate levels of clothing and eat snacks for 12 hours if we could find a way to do it without me wanting to go to sleep.
I watched us eating things, and I don't ever want to do that again.
Mark says, you two have definitely taught me the stop being a condescending prick part of conversing.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
That's kind of a working goal for me all the time. It's a meditation. It's my Zen sort of like, okay, how do I not be a cunt? How do I, fuck, goddamn it, I'm so ready to do that right now.
The problem is, I mean, you can name the number of times that someone has belittled you into changing your mind. Name the number of times that someone has come at you and told you what a piece of shit you are, and you've been like, you know what, you're right.
Oh my God.
Wow, I really should change my mind.
You know what? You've called me libtard 27 times, and really the 28th time I finally got it.
I finally started thinking about what it means to be a libtard, and if I am one.
And I want to become whoever you are.
Yeah.
Who keeps calling me that name.
I would just...
Thanks for finally sticking with me.
So I have friends on all sides of the political spectrum in the U.S. who just shit talk each other online all the time. And this has definitely been something I've been talking with people about this week. It's really funny because even some of the people who I see shit talking the people on the other team are like, you're right. We can't belittle people into changing their minds. And I'm like, you're one of the people doing it. But you don't see it because you think a certain kind of person is okay to be a cunt to.
Right.
And you think that's going to solve the problem. They're going to keep living. It doesn't matter what the issue is. It could be racism, homophobia, like
nobody's ever shamed
issues.
me into compliance.
No, it could be political, financial, like parenting styles. It doesn't matter. What if you let a human get to a certain point where it's just okay to shit talk them, you're not solving the problem. Anyway.
Might be complicating it a little bit.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
How are you feeling, dear? You want to end on a high note?
We can end on a high note.
When are we going to come back? Let me look at my calendar. Officially. So Christmas is on Saturday. Everybody just take a deep breath.
We just have to decorate our co-host.
Oh yeah,
Hang
we'll
some
put
lights
Christmas
on
lights
her.
on her.
Yeah.
So Christmas is on Saturday, and then New Year's is the next Saturday. So we are 2 Saturdays away from 2022. God bless you all. We're gonna make it. Do you want to? You wanna come back on the 2nd for an official restart of season 3? Here's some things we're gonna do over break. I have a backlog of podcasts that I want to. These live streams that I want to turn into audios.
We're on Spotify now. You can find Post-Orthodoxy on Spotify.
Yeah, you can share with your friends that are like, I really just like podcasts. And you can just share our podcast with people, but I'm like 5 weeks behind.
Because some people are like, hey, tell me about a podcast. You could say, well, there's a
Post-Orthodoxy podcast.
Yep.
So you can.
That's out there. Apple, Spotify.
Google Music, Amazon Music.
Oh, wow.
There are a couple. I still haven't gotten the Apple one yet because they keep not sending me the email that I need.
Oh.
Or maybe it's going to your spam folder. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so we're going to convert the live streams to podcasts and catch up on old podcasts. I'm going to convert all of my Jolly Roger Kids Talk radio shows to podcasts so I can start sharing those with the kids that produce them now that KBMF has killed the Jolly Roger. Those shows should live on for the sake of the kids that produce that content for their community. So that's going to be one of my projects. We need to make business cards.
Yeah.
So that when people are like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I do this thing.
Bling.
Here you go."
Yep.
And what are some of your goals for the mid-season for the season 2 to season 3 break?
Oh, for the break, I figured it'd be good to sort of design a plan that would sort of catalyze the growing unease in the majority of the country to realize that we have more in common than not. And that the illusion was fun for a while, but no longer necessary, so that we could be having a better time with each other more often next year.
So, like in practical terms, is that like a blog article or?
Yeah, I'm working on a piece for my Substack. It'll be out next week.
darkxavier.substack.com.
It's mostly written.
I like the idea of trying to find solutions. One of the solutions that I'm going to be researching and sharing a lot on the Post-Orthodoxy Facebook page and on Twitter is some of these protocols about how people can support their cardiovascular systems in light of what the mRNA shots are doing to some people's cardiovascular systems. I have a lot of friends that I'm really worried about, and I want people to take care of themselves, you know? A lot of people who took the shots for really good reasons and are now at risk of having a fucking aneurysm.
How many COVID funerals have I gone to? 0.
Yeah.
I've gone to 0. I've known people who know people who've died of COVID.
Yes, I know of people,
and
but I don't know anyone.
I'm speaking in my very specific, my lived experience.
Well, but you have thousands of friends all over the planet.
I have friends all over the planet. So I'm not saying this is the experience. I'm saying my experience, my cognitive privilege, is that I don't have any people close to me who died from COVID so far. So I've been very fortunate in that way.
Yeah.
I have had somebody who has died now who had a blood clot 4 days after her booster. Causation or correlation, I do not know, but it sends up a flag to me because it is becoming an increasing story that these are things that occur shortly after people have been having their boosters.
And you're not going to find it on Facebook, but you can find these stories on Twitter. There is a person that you can follow, an account called They Say It's Rare on Twitter. You can look at this account without having a Twitter account. She has been collecting stories from real humans who have been talking about their friends and loved ones' experiences with having cardiac arrest, aneurysms, lymph node explosions, autoimmune problems, skin diseases, all sorts of things from as direct reactions from getting their shots. These are real things that are happening. Now, we will probably never see the true numbers on how much vaccine injury there is from these COVID treatments. But there are stories of it happening, and you can know about them, and you can use them as a tool to introduce reasonable doubt to your loved ones.
Anecdotal evidence.
Yeah. Twitter, they say it's rare.
Yeah. This lady's been at it for just barely a couple of weeks, 10 days, something like that. And she's collected over 5,000, 6,000 stories.
She will probably eventually be kicked off of Twitter. She has 16,000 followers at this point. And she has a Telegram as a backup. So t.me/they say it's rare. I'll share that in our thread. Thank you. Everybody on Twitch, friend me back. Everybody on Facebook, drop one last salacious emoji on that video. Who ain't be my friend? Who ain't be my friend? Painfulest on Twitch ain't be my friend.
So yeah, you can like us on
Saralna,
Twitch,
Ladybug,
on Facebook.
All of those things are free things that you
Twitter.
can do that really help us a lot. And then if you'd like to do something that's not free, you could throw some bucks at us on postorthodoxy.com over the Christmas break as a Christmas present.
Yeah.
Or a New Year's resolution,
end
as
of year gift.
Mark French said, a New Year's resolution.
Yeah, we have been, more and more I'm thinking about this idea of you are what you eat being applied to your head. You have to know what mama bird's going to puke into your mouth for your informational intake, and you got to know where that shit's coming from. What kind of processing is in it? What kind of additives have been thrown in there? Like, where are you getting the shit that feeds your head? You need to know your sources, and we do not present ourselves as a source of information for you as much as we are trying to show you our process of sourcing information, because we can't just go to MSNBC and apparently NPR or any of our other trusted institutions and trust that we're going to get informed about what the hell's going on. So we have to find other sources. And so this is a clearinghouse for us to show that this is some guy that I've been watching. This is somebody else who seems to have an impressive CV.
Yeah. They don't seem to be funded by a government or military source.
Right. They seem to be fairly transparent. And so that's what we're doing here. And we like to share that with people who are looking to be aware of what they feed their heads.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everybody who's tuned in today's show. I never know how to, we have the song sign off, right?
Mama bird brain puke.
Yeah.
Mark French says,
God.
The new manufacturer of consent, or the new Thomas Paine freedom, up to you. Thomas Paine?
Thomas Paine.
Yeah? Is he the guy?
Yeah, he's a guy.
Are you ready to be done? I'm playing the song.
Miss you guys. Have a happy holiday. Happy darkest part of the year. Aloha.
Thank you for visiting our outpost in the borderlands. Post-Orthodoxy is a project of Sevier Studios. We host ongoing, interactive conversations centered around cognitive liberty, and you can join in by catching one of our live streams on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You can also catch each conversation after the fact as a podcast by searching for Post-Orthodoxy wherever podcasts are found. If you take value from the work we are doing and the community we're building together, you can support the Outpost in the Borderlands for as little as $5 a month on our website, Better Time. That's betterti.me. Visit the Sevier Studios page and subscribe. You can also support The Outpost by following and connecting with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and or Substack. Our Post-Orthodoxy theme music was composed by Frank Pascal, and a special thanks goes to our voice actors, Amelia, Colin, Zbo, Rosie, Gabo, Vicky, Mokai, and Tony.
Thanks for playing.
What's outside your reality bubble? I think I dribbled a bit that last one.